Okay, hi everybody. Just give me 1 minute. I'll pull up my slides. Okay. You all should be getting the set A slides yesterday already. Okay. If you have not, just let me know. Maybe we can attach it later. So again, the slides tonight will all be given to you, and you can please feel free to share it with anybody who you think needs this. I think some of the parents WhatsApp me. I just saw because I was busy with a lot of things. I just saw some messages and I will reply later tonight by midnight. Okay. Thanks. Give me a while. I just want to see. Okay. Um, okay, the slides we actually is actually disseminated to everybody, regardless of whether you are attending this lecture or not, because all these slides are actually fresh. So that means yesterday I did up the slides. Today, for today's session, I did a slide, so we will share with you. So give me a while. I will share it with everybody. Let's say for tonight's slides, I will share it here right now. Okay, I will share it here right now, just in case you don't get it. Just let me just let me attach first. Just let me attach first. Let me see. Let me attach it here for today's slides. Give me a while. Give me a while. I'm trying to find the slides. Joanne, thanks for you have just attached, right? Okay. Do you have session A as well? If you have, you can attach it here. If not, we can try to find it later. Okay. So thank you, Joanne, for attaching the slides. So right now I will begin. So this is for tonight. As you can see, a lot of stuff to cover. I actually do this. We actually do this over a series. Okay, over a series. But right now everything is condensed. Yeah, because yeah, we have always been doing this. And I try to make it as comprehensive for everybody as possible. Okay, can you all see this set of slides? Can you see this set of slides? Joanne, can you see my set of slides?
Yes, Alvin.
Yes, okay, thanks. So as you can see, let me see, I'm trying to see my own slides so that I can see better. Okay, doesn't matter. As long as you can see, it's fine. So session B, questions by talent domain. Okay, questions by talent domain. Just to go back to what we did yesterday. Yesterday, we gave you some generic interview tips, and all these things are important, not just for your DSA. They are actually very important life skill and applies to every single thing which we're going to do going forward. The PERF framework, if you can do so, you don't need to think about it as a framework or anything. You just need to think of it that you're just telling a story. You're just providing evidence of what you're going to say. That's it. Whether you were doing your O levels, whether you're doing any interviews, whether you're doing your oral exam, everything is about elaborating on what you just said. Okay, that's it. And everything is a story. So the reason why I keep emphasizing everything is a story, because storytelling is extremely important skill. Okay, storytelling is extremely important skill because once you can do this, you can do a lot of things. And whatever speeches you have, whatever contests you have, once you're able to tell stories, everything becomes very inspirational and invigorating. So it's important to master this art of storytelling. Maybe after your PSLE, after your O levels, I will conduct workshops for everybody. Okay, for everybody after your exams. Because right now we focus on your exams first, and then I think I can consider having 1 or 2 days of workshops for everybody. And as long as you're a mind stretcher or master speakers, I think that'd be most useful for you. Yeah. So the PER framework, body language and presence basics, the 25 question bank. Tonight we go deeper, we go by domain by domain. So tonight, what you're going to see, you're going to see possible questions that may come out each talent domain. I'm just giving you a broad range. Why? Because different schools different, right? So again, I want to emphasize some schools, they have general questions followed by specific domain questions. Some schools, because it's very specific by domain, you may not get the general questions because they got too little time. So they will just go into the talent domain questions. This is the reality. So there is no one fixed size. It really depends on the school. Okay, and again, you see my point here. Know this so that you're not caught off guard, but please do not over prepare. Okay, please do not over prepare. Your priority should be, for those of you who are taking your O levels, those because the IP students don't need to take the O levels. They go straight to the JC, correct? They go straight to the JC or to do either the A levels or what do you call that? Or the IB diploma. Whereas O levels, you're applying for the DSA JC or the poly early admission exercise. So your priority should be this or the O levels. But I tell you why these sessions are important. As I mentioned, I've taught many students, right? And some of the students, like, for instance, I'm just giving you a real example. Eldon Tan. Eldon Tan was one of the top students in RI. He was one of the superstars. He eventually ended up being a president scholar. When he was Sec 3, when I conducted this talk, I told him to come for this particular session because I told him that whatever I'm teaching you, which I don't have time to do individually, whatever I'm teaching at this seminar is going to be very helpful should you want to apply for scholarships next time. True enough, he and his mother came, and a lot of things beneficial. Another one was another girl who was the vice head counselor of Nanyang Girls. She also came at Sec 4, even though this was the targeted of DSA, because whatever I'm sharing is actually useful for all. So it's very important to remember that, okay? But your priority right now, focus on your O level, PSLE. This is foundation. Everything else we need to build on. Okay, tonight's agenda. What are we covering? Okay, whatever questions which you have, I will not be I will not be I cannot look at it because I'm giving the talk right now, but I will address it through the FAQ or whatever things we should cover later on or through another session. So tonight's agenda, why specific domain questions matter, sports and games, performing and visual arts, debate and public speaking, science, mathematics and engineering, language humanities, leadership, uniform groups, poly EA, cross-domain practice for the week and Q&A. And so it is important that all schools are different and the domains which they offer are also different, right? And just because one school offers bilingualism, it doesn't mean that the way they select is equal to another school. So no, so the way some SAP schools select is different from what another SAP school may do. And the reason why I tell you this is because they go by many, like for instance, some SAP schools, they will ask you to actually translate a song. Okay, they actually ask you to translate a song or give you a piece of literature or a news and you translate it vice versa. Some they don't. Some they just ask you to discuss in general what are views about Chinese, what are views of English. So they come in wide variety of forms. But I always tell students, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what course is this. We must always be ready to do it. Yep. Give me a while. Okay. So fine. So sports and games, so this is the important point which you need to understand. Why domain-specific questions matter? Okay, foundations get you into the door. The domain knowledge tells the panel you actually belong here. So again, I want to stress, so if you're doing for performing arts, if you're going for performing arts and sports, the audition and the trial is actually the most important thing. This domain-specific questions are not the most important thing. Okay, as I mentioned yesterday, if you are applying for hockey for a school DSA, the most important thing is your hockey skills. Okay, I don't care if you cannot speak. This will generally be a rule, but if you can speak, that is better. Correct? But the interview will not determine your place. Your skill in the performing arts and sports will definitely be from the sports and trial. That will be the most important thing. The interview is just a way to get to know you better. Okay? The way to get to know you better. Okay, I need to, one of them is having some problems for a while. I'll just give me 1 minute. I need to take an urgent call in relation to that. Okay, but I want you to read this first. Okay, I want you to read this first. You give me a while. I just need to do this urgent call with respect to this seminar. Okay, hi everybody. Sorry, I'm back. Yes. Yep. So what changes by domain? The interviewer. So it depends. Okay, so let me just give you an example. But these are real. So if you are doing for sports, okay, if you are doing sports, the coach for that particular sports may be involved in your selection. Okay, like for instance, if you are applying for badminton, obviously the best person to judge would be the badminton coach for that particular school. So in that particular case, yes. But when it comes to non-sporting things like debate, like speaking, it is not the coach who is involved because the coach comes in after you enter the school. Right, so most of the time it's just the teacher in charge who is involved. So some coaches may be involved, but mainly for sports. This is the general rule. Okay, so what changes by events? So when it comes to coaches, they are probably just involved in the sporting talent domain. They are not going to be involved in the interview as a general rule. Okay, the interview is usually the teacher in charge of the CCA or department. Usually, why I say usually, it can also be the CCA head or selected teachers or to be involved in the DSA. The kind of evidence they want: trial results, audition pieces, awards, project portfolios, technical vocabulary. So obviously, if you are telling me that you're really interested in music, there needs to be some technical vocabulary, right? So if I give you, because sometimes they ask very specific questions, like what do you mean by fortissimo? I'm just giving you an example, okay? So if you claim to be good in music, you really have to know some of these technical terms. Yep. The follow-up that domain interviews go deeper into specifics. What showing your love looks like. Okay, it's different from music, right? Showing your love for music is entirely different from showing your love for robotics and leadership. Now, what stays the same? What changes by domain? General rules. What stays the same? You also can see my slides, right? Can? Because I only see my face right now. Can, okay, as you can see. Okay, what stays the same? Perf still works, storytelling still works, honesty. Yes, as long as you're being sincere in what you say. And sincerity for me, sometimes it is a projection. Okay, sometimes it is a projection, which is why the authenticity in speaking is a skill. Okay, it's a skill. Specific stories will always beat generic descriptions, and composure under pressure wins. Usually, especially in group work, Yeah. Knowing the school still matters. Absolutely. You got to show why you want to join the school, why the school should take you in. So tonight is about adding the domain layer on top of last night's foundation. Yeah. So solo interview versus group interview, group work. Okay, now I give you some examples. Group work, group interview, group work would always be relevant. Let's say you're applying for NUS High. Every one of you would take the test. Once you take the test, you're shortlisted. Everybody goes for a half-day interview or full-day, depending on the domain. Then there you involve in group work. Same thing like leadership. When it comes to leadership domains, most of the time when you are shortlisted, you'll be asked to attend a group session. So even the MOE awards, you'll be attending a group session. Why is that the case? Because they want to see how you interact, whether you display the traits of a leader and so forth. So there will be group sessions, but it varies by school. No one size fits all. So solo interview versus group interview, group work. So many different models, right? So you can have 4 or 5 students, and they tell you they may actually, because it really depends, because not all the teachers are really super or professional interviewers. So many of them would just go like that, like that, like that, like that. Okay. Okay, what is your view? What is your view? What is your view? So this is the routine type. So because many of them are not professional interviewers, or they don't do this often, it's just like treating another student is just an oral exam. Okay. So solo interview, what is testing how you think when you're the only voice in the room, one. So you most of the time you will be 2 interviews most. Can it be 1 interview? Yes, it depends on the school. Okay, as I mentioned clearly, most of the time maximum is 2, most of the time. How deep you can go on your own answers, how you handle pressure without your peers, obviously, right? Your specific knowledge in your talent and your school. So ultimately, you must still know one thing, right? Why you want to join the school and why this talent domain. Okay? Group work interview is not about getting the right answer. There is no right answer in all these things because it can be pretty generic. What do I mean by group scenarios? Let me give you one example. Okay, let me give you one example. These are all real cases. Okay, these are all real cases. So it can be a case like for NUS High. There was one year when I gave students the scenarios and it all came out for NUS High. So I just give you this real scenario, but these are not unique to NUS High. These are general problem scenarios which is unique to at all levels. Because if you have attended enough scholarship interviews, enough workshop interviews, you find that these are all pretty general, just about how you think. So I just give you an example, a survivor scenario. There are 13 of you, your aeroplane crash in the desert, okay? So this is the problem scenario. But in the desert, there are 13 objects lying around. You can only bring 5, okay? You can only bring 5. Discuss as a group and finalize and come as a group decision what 5 objects you should bring. You see, so this is a case of seeing how you prioritize, how you analyze, and how you reason it out, right? So in this case, does speaking matter? Yes, speaking does matter. So again, when it comes to leadership domains, it can be like that. So group work can involve many different things. As I gave the example yesterday at Nanyang JC, right? They ask you to draw a motto of the school as a group and explain what your motto represents. So it really depends on the school. So for me, there is no right or wrong answer. Everything depends on you yourself. So we just need to have the courage to speak. And all these group interviews, make sure that you are not silent. Okay, if you're silent, everything is relative. Everything is relative. You know, when I was younger, as I told you, my interview success rate is 100%. And it's always useful for me to have group interviews because during group interviews, I can show that I'm really the most passionate. I know quite a lot of things and how to coordinate. I think this is pretty important. So everything comes with that. But bearing in mind, some of you in primary 6, some of you are sec 4. So these are skills which may not be so obvious yet. So all you have to do is to show that you're a little bit more enthusiastic, a little bit more passionate than others, and you stand a good deal, okay? So it's how you listen. So remember, it's also, if you want to be a leader, especially when it's group work, leadership domains, you got to show how you accommodate views as well, right? We don't want to be the dominant voice, everything, oh, this is right, this is right, this is my view. So they also want to see how you take other views into consideration. Yeah. Okay, so whether you contribute without dominating, this is very important because you don't want to be the arrogant guy in the room which dominates everything. In the end, it's very difficult to be a leader unless you're like Kim Jong-un, unless you're like Donald Trump, where you're autocratic leader in. But this is not how we exist, function in most groups, right? Because you're not a dictator. So it's important to understand that how you handle disagreement. And it is always a fact that there will be disagreement. Okay, there will be disagreement. It's a case of how you handle the disagreements because it's completely okay because everybody has their own views, right? So it's a case of how you justify it and maybe to try to convince the rest why this works. So this group work can come in many different forms, scenarios. It can even be building a straw house. Okay, building a straw house. So they give you a pair of straws, ask you to build a house because they want to see how you work together. Okay, and as I mentioned, these are not unique to DSA. They have existed ever since I was a young kid. When I was a young kid, I attended some of these sessions, and now I see them being reflected in all this DSA domain. So they're not something new, they're something generic. So it is not like they invented it. These has always been existing. Yeah. So whether you help others shine, especially the quieter ones, why is this important, especially when it comes to the leadership domain? Because it's all about pulling the quieter ones, the less confident ones along. So if you can exhibit this, that is good. But if you cannot, don't worry. Don't be too obsessed about it, okay? Because as I mentioned, this is just a primary 6 or sec 4. So unless you're really actively involved, you can't really know whether you can be confident without making it by yourself. Can? This is just some ideas. So sports and games, important. The talent trial is usually the main thing. The interview is getting to know you. This will always be true. This will always be true. If you are top in your talent, you get in. Simple as that. I'm best in badminton, NAG, I'm top 3. Do they want you? Talent domain? Absolutely. Tennis, table tennis. So in the past, for all the students I know, top 3, top 5 in the sport they're in, almost all the time they are in. Okay? I would say that 99%. So I'm referring to those who are exceptionally good. Okay, so most of the time they're in, unless something accident happens where they cannot go for the trial. So this is the reality. So in this case, does the interview matter so much? No, the interview doesn't matter too much. Okay, but whatever skills which I'm teaching is still relevant going forward. Okay, let's talk about one of the questions which was asked by one of the parents here. I'm going to forward this to everybody here so that I'll answer this question live. So everybody take a look at this question. So for music domain, when there are two candidates, one who plays well, does not talk well, and one who does not play well but talks well, the school would choose the one who, absolutely. Because when you are music, I'm just giving you an example, okay? Music, most of the schools would have this minimum requirement. You need to be grade 5 or grade 4, depending on the school in music. But times have changed, right? So grade 4 and 5 is the minimum requirement. So if you have grade 8, if you have diploma, and I thought I seen everything. I just give you an example. One of the my churches students at primary 4. Last time I was looking, so usually, you get grade 8 diploma already super. But there was this primary 4 mind stretcher student. In primary 4, she already has a diploma, music diploma in violin and piano. So you see, so it's very difficult to beat her. I give you another example, okay? A St. Hilda's girl, a St. Hilda's mind stretcher student, St. Hilda's primary, because I was helping her. But I told her, so I tell you what happened. So she applied for RGS. RGS selected 2 students. Okay, so the first question I asked her, so one was a mind stretcher student, the other was an. So I asked her this question. Do you know the other girl who was selected for music at RGS? He said, yes, I know her. And I said, how do you know her? Because he said that in all the contests since primary 1, she is my main rival. So from primary 1 to primary 6, when it comes to piano contest, it's either her first or her friend first. Does it matter that she doesn't know how to speak? No, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah, so this is the reality, because at the end of the day, I am not recruiting you for speaking. I'm recruiting you for your talent in music. So I think this part here is very clear. You can be the best speaker, but your badminton, let me give you an example. So let's say I want to apply. Let's say assuming that I'm a Sec 4 student, okay? And last time, let me tell you, last time, I just let you know, last time I played volleyball competitively. Okay, I played, but I wasn't a super volley. I was in the school team, yes, but I was not like super good volleyball player. Actually played a number of sports when I was younger. I actually played badminton, table tennis, volleyball. Why? Because my father was actually a very good sportsman. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't take after my father, so I'm not a born sportsman. So, but I was a decent player, decent enough to get into the school team, but not good enough to like say DSA. Assuming DSA existed, man. Now DSA did it exist in my time? Yes, of course it did, but not in the official form. Okay, it did. If you're good in sports, you get a place in the college, you get a place in the school without this official DSA channel. So yes, this existed during my time. I just give you one real example. One of my friends in my class in RI, right? My class was a top class in RI, okay, and top class in RJC because of the students in and because of the ASEAN scholars. My ASEAN scholar batch was a bit exceptional because out of the 10 top RI students, 6 were ASEAN scholars. So my batch was pretty exceptional in the sense that they got some super students there. Okay, so you see what happened. But one of my very good friends, in fact, it was my roommate for 2 years because during that time we were staying in Hwa Chong Hostel. RI didn't have a hostel yet, so we were all staying in Hwa Chong Hostel. So he was my very good friend and my classmate. But his results for O levels were not good. So his O levels, he scored something like 14 points. So 14 points, he got posted to Jurong Junior College, right? But because he was the RI hockey captain, RI got him. Now you come back. RI hockey captain will put him back into the hockey team. So this is the reality. So in my time, all of this existed up to the year 2023 when DSA became official. So yes, everything is about your sporting ability. So my friend, good in hockey, not so good in studies. Does RJC want him? They want him because he's good in hockey and he's going to bring them the honors. So this is the reality, okay? So the music, the performing arts, sporting ability would always be the most important thing. So coming back to my example, so assuming that I'm good in speaking, but I'm average in volleyball. So I'm just giving an example, assuming that during that time, I want to apply for Victoria Junior College. Let's assume I want to apply for Victoria Junior College, and I tell them that I'm a very confident speaker, okay? But I'm applying through the volleyball domain. So it's very clear. I go for the volleyball trials and they realize that I'm not the best volleyball player around. It really doesn't matter. They're not going to choose me. So this is very clear, okay? So we need to be aware, right? Your talent in the specific domain for sporting and performing arts will always take precedence. Full stop. Cool? Okay, so sports and games important. The talent trial is usually the main thing. I would say it is always the main thing. Okay, yeah. So clear? So common questions. These come across track, swimming, ball games. I'm just giving a series of questions which we all need to know how to prepare, right? It's just general questions. You don't need to prepare too much. General questions. So tell us about your sport. Why this one? Tell us a setback injury. And this is quite common when it comes to sporting questions because once you're a sportsman, there will always be some injury. Most of the time, not necessarily all the time, but definitely. Okay, so if you have, I think we should talk about how do you handle it because they want to understand your resilience. What position, or yes, they always cycle, whether you play as a striker, whether you play as a defender, whether you're basketball, you are whatever, right? So this will always be evident in team games. Team games. What is your training schedule like? They just want to see how you balance things. What is your proudest achievement? Yeah, this is a very common question. So whatever questions which I'm giving you are actually quite common questions, okay? How do you balance training with academics? Again, a very favorite question, whether it's at secondary, JC, poly, common. Who is a sporting role model? Yes, if you are going for, let's say for soccer, you need to talk a little bit about soccer. Who is your number one soccer idol, right? If you're going for swimming, who is it? And I think you need to know the locals as well, not just overseas. So at least you have a local idol, maybe is Singaporean swimming, you can talk about Joseph Schooling or some other things. So I think it's important to have that prepared. Yeah. How will you contribute to sports? Is a very, very common questions. Remember, all these things, as I told you, comes in three different categories, right? We want to know more about you. Tell us why you want to join us, and tell us why we should take you in. So how will you contribute to our sports CC? Here is why we should take you in. Example, P6. So I'm giving you some examples, and all these things are real examples, okay? So DSA, tell us about your sport and what made you fall in love with it. Okay, so my name is Hannah. I run sprints, mainly the 100 meter. I started running in P3. So I'm telling you a story right now. I started running in P3 because my form teacher saw me chasing my younger brother, which is cool. If you read the newspapers, many of the accidental sprinters, okay, accidental sportsmen, especially in the less developed countries where they have resources, they were all identified by accident. The coach saw the student running very fast, chasing after a bus, and said, "Wow, this student, let me speak to you." This happens in a lot of the African nation, nations. But if you read the local stories, there are many examples as well. Okay, many examples as well. Any of you play chess here? Any of you play chess here? Okay, if for those of you who play international chess, you probably know the strongest chess player in Singapore, right? Grandmaster Ding Jingyao. Okay, Grandmaster Ding Jingyao, the strongest nine-time national champion. He was a my stretcher student here, and we help him a lot of things. So even right now, he is attached to my stretcher. Not only is he a strong chess player, so I want to tell you, because all these things do matter, he is also one of the top computer science students in in NUS High. So he's one of the rare breeds where he's able to balance both. So yeah, and recently I was teaching him how to speak better. So after he's 24 years old right now, but over the last couple of months, he has grown to become a much more confident speaker. So he was an ex-GP student. He entered Hua Chong through DSA chess. Obviously, so there was a reason why, and his chess was by accident. So sometimes it's like that. Okay, he started playing Wei Qi, the game of Go at primary three. Then chess was just by accident, but at primary three, you could see that he was a real prodigy. He was a real prodigy. At that time, I was a chess coach of RI, chess coach of RI and RGS pro bono. So I teach them for free. So in fact, last time I used to do a lot of pro bono things. I used to teach Nanyang Primary School chess for free. Raffles Girls Primary School, chess for free, RI and RGS. Why these four schools? Very simple. Bulk of the team were my structure students. Since they were my structure students, I helped the team, I helped the school. Right? So that's how I ended up. And I realized that at primary three, after learning chess for 6 months, he could beat me, and I'm not a weak chess player. He could beat me at primary three, just after learning chess and I was the RI coach. So that was the staggering level of talent he has. Okay, so all these things discovered by accident. So everything is about telling a story. Okay, domain that, name a specific event, why the sport. So these are just some notes for you so that you understand the structure. Okay. Sec 4 student volleyball talent area. I think last year we got quite a number of students, JCs, Sec 4 students getting into various JCs through a wide variety, volleyball, choir, debating, and so forth. So different spectrum. Okay, so I play the setter. So obviously, if you're volleyball, telling him, if you're school captain, please put it in, right? You lead the team, then it gives you something more to scan. Vice captain, any leadership position, weave it into the sport. So I won't go through this in details. I'm just giving you some examples, all these things. So you see, everything is about telling a story. Everything is about explaining, right? I played setter for my school senior team. Last month, we played the Venture Champions in the quarterfinal. Sometimes it's not about you need to be champion. No, it's just about the journey, how you explain it, how you tell about it. What I took from that is setting the ball, whatever. So this is just some ideas, okay? They are not cast in stone. Please feel free to come up with your own story. So just remember, when it comes to spotting domains, all you have to do is you just talk a little bit. As I mentioned, the most important thing is not the interview, but the reason why I gave examples, because all these things are still important going forward in life, that everything revolves around explaining what you do. Okay, so I want to keep this coming in JC, Sec 4 basketball talent area. And I give you another example of my I would call um one of my relatives. Okay, why I emphasize this again? Sporting talent beats everything. So you must understand my relative because they come from Johor. So every day he makes the journey to Singapore. Okay, that means they have a private bus because my relatives are relatively well off and they always find that Singapore education is more rigorous. So they want to do them to have some background before they send them overseas. So for the primary and secondary, study in Singapore. So this kid, every day, 4 hours to and fro. Singapore, JB, Singapore, JB. Okay. And he doesn't like to study. And my relatives, they are not, most of them just study up to P6, okay, but they're very capable businessmen, so they got a lot of money, but they are not really educated in that sense. There is nothing wrong about it because everybody has a different thing. So they don't really converse, they cannot really converse in English. So because the family background is like that, it's very difficult for him to also be good at English. Okay. So his studies is just okay. I think probably in the total PSLE score in the 18 to 20 categories. So on average, he'll get 5, and his English is not ideal, right? But basketball, super basketball, he's a short guy. Most basketballers are tight, but because he plays basketball every day in Johor Bahru, after he doesn't really study, he plays basketball. So it is super good, even though he's super short. So did he get his basketball DSA? Yes, so because I told the mom, PSLE, we may have a little bit of trouble, so try to get him into something which he likes. It can be anything. So I told him that different kids are using, so we cannot force him to be good in studies, but give him something which he likes. So eventually they agreed, put him in basketball, and he got easily. Okay, so even though he went for interview, yes, but interview was very basic lah. Okay, that is why you like basketball. Well, how do you think you can be part of our school team? That's it, 2 or 3 questions. But his basketball skills super so easy, easy selection. So this is what I'm trying to tell you again. So he cannot really speak, but basketball skills number one in. Okay, this is the reality. Um, but of course, different schools, different standard. Why I say that? When it comes to the IP schools, when it comes to the IP schools, it depends. Again, it depends because not all IP schools, some IP schools, especially like Hwa Chong, they will now look at your grades. Okay, they want to ensure that you actually have a little bit more rigor so that you can survive in the system. Okay, this is the reality. This is the reality. Okay, not all schools are like that. Hwa Chong is actually quite strict on this. Even if you're a national champion and let's say national champion for table tennis and your grades are pretty bad, they are likely not to take you in because from the history, from the past, it has been proven that if you're going through this route, you're going to struggle. It's not good for the students, but it doesn't apply to all schools. It doesn't apply to all schools. Okay, so that's why I say we need to be, for all parents here, I just want to remind you all, okay, when you go to a school, most important thing is still the academic environment must be suitable. We don't want to push him to a so-called brand name. As I mentioned, it's no point putting the so-called brand name. Why? Because you cannot make the leap from primary 6 to this. And this is reality. Whereas this may be different from RI. Okay, RI grades are bad, but you're top few, you may get in. So different philosophy. Okay, so that's why you must know. And I used to tell my friends, I, I'm 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 just giving you an example, okay? My friend's son, top 3 table tennis in Singapore. So super good, very difficult. In fact, I think he was number 1 table tennis. Did he get a place in the school he wanted? The parents wanted, the so-called competitive schools. He got it. But I told the parent, okay, I said that you want to go to this school. I don't think it's very advisable, okay? I think that in order to survive at this school, I think minimum you should get is, I think your PSLE score should be, you must keep yourself at 10. So even though your DSA, it doesn't matter. If you qualify for the IP school, you can get 20, you still get in. But I told the parents objectively to survive in this school at this level, because it's a direct transmission. Because sometimes it's different for me. I am a late developer. So as I mentioned, why is it a little bit different for me? Because primary 6, I was only a top 20 student in my kampong primary school. So if I had gone to RI then, I would have died because my level was not yet there. But I spent my lower secondary in Malaysia, which was different because from top 20 students, suddenly I became number one student in secondary school because I changed my method of studying. I became very motivated. I became very diligent. So that suddenly, through that change alone, I became number one in my primary school. So with the 2 years back in Malaysia, right now, I was ready to go to RI. So it's different. So I had the 2 years to build myself up. Okay, so it's clear. But if you are getting like 19 and 20 for your PSLE, you want to go to a school like I think it's going to be tough. It's very difficult for you to make that transition because you're not going to improve overnight just like that. And this is the reality. If not, you go there, you're going to die. So this is my advice. But sometimes they don't want to listen to me. Then they go in and they find out they cannot catch up. I think it's pretty sad. Okay, then the pressure comes along because once you're in the sports CCA, so I just want to remind all parents, sports CCA quite demanding, 3-4 times a week of training. Okay, 3-4 times a week of training, depending on the school you're in, depending on the CCA you're in. So I want to repeat. So if you go to an ultra competitive school where it moves very fast, you come back from CCA 7 p.m., depending on how hard you train, you come back very tired, very exhausted. Then you want to do the work. And some of the work you don't understand because they do very fast. That's when you end up in trouble. I'm telling you from experience. That's why I always tell parents, not all schools are for everybody, okay? It doesn't mean that you go to ACSI, it doesn't mean that you go to Victoria School, it doesn't mean that RI you can meet for life. No, I tell you for sure, RI 35% casualties. This is what you don't see. I see them all the time, each and every year. You don't believe me until it happens, okay? And the IP system saves many of these IP students. And that's why it is important to understand that there's a school for everybody. Like recently, we just had our My Church Achievement Awards. There was this girl, okay, PSLE around 12. Right now, O levels, 10A1s. I will tell you, if 10A1s, you're going to beat 95% of all IP students. So right now, she's gone to RI, doing very well because different discipline, right? And they had the time to develop, okay? But you don't want to go to school where you cannot catch up because otherwise it can be very stressful for you. So I want to repeat. So you only go to a school for DSA talent domain if you think you got a good chance of surviving that school. Otherwise, you add in all the necessary pressure. So that's why I say there's school for everybody. Don't go for those brand names. Think about your child's progress. Does the school name help you survive? No. At the end of the day, you go to RI, you get three C's. I go to Timbuktu Junior College, I get 3 A's. Who gets the university place? The student from Timbuktu Junior College, right? Do all RI and RGS and all ACS, all Hwa Chong students do well? No, absolutely not. Not by amount, okay? So you must understand how IP works because IP right now, you don't take O levels, so you move directly. Okay, but if you are not a diligent student and you cannot cope, you'll be in trouble in JC. 100%. I say this with absolute confidence. Last time during my time or up to the year 2004, if you are like all IP schools, right? If you are not so good in your studies, you get sieved out by O levels. You cannot go to the competitive JCs. You see, I used the word competitive, I don't use the word top or whatever, okay? Competitive JCs, right? Because your grades are not good enough. During my time, during Moses' time, whatever, 35% of all RI students will be sieved out. They cannot go to RJC. We're not even talking about RJC, we're talking about the competitive JCs, NJC, Temasek Junior College, so forth. They cannot get into, and then let's not even mention about RJC or Hwa Chong, 35%. Okay, but right now, almost 100% moving. But make no mistake, this is a bell curve. Those students who cannot make it will still be reflected in the A levels. I can tell you this as a fact. It's not an opinion, okay? So that's why there's a school for everybody. So don't be too obsessed. Go to a school which enables you to develop. I give you another example of another president scholar, okay? These are all real cases so that you understand. So, okay, so this is, okay, so what happened, this student, I'm going to translate it back to PSLE score because this was under the PSLE T score. So why DSA? This president scholar was a little bit unique. So his PSLE score was around two, if I translate it was around 2 plus, 225, 225, 22. So if I put it into AL score, it is probably around 14 or 15. Okay, he could go for some schools, but he decided to join DSA for sports school. So a little bit unique sports school, focus on sports. So why did he make that decision? Because he said that this is according to him, not to me. He said that I want to develop my soccer skills, and if I go to a more competitive school which focuses on academic, I'm likely to be in trouble. Okay, so whereas if I go to Singapore sports school, I'm not too bad in my studies. I'm still okay relative to many of the students in Singapore sports school, but because I want to develop my leadership and also to engage in my sports, I think Singapore sports school is good for me. So he went to Singapore sports school. He emerged as one of the top students there. A levels, for O levels, he got something like 6A1s, and he was the Singapore sports school soccer captain. So right now, 6A1s O level, he transferred to ACSI, IB diploma. So he ended up with a good score, 42 out of 45 IB diploma, and he ended up with the President's Scholarship. Okay, so there is a school for everybody. I chose to share with you another student we had, GP student. Okay, so this GP student came from Hong Kong. He was from Nanhua. Okay, so if I were to look at his T score, I transfer it now, it's a 4D. Okay, 4D. So he was a My Treasure student all the way from primary 3 to Sec 4. Okay, Sec 4, primary 3. So what school, with a score of 4D, 268 at the time, he could go to any school he wanted. Did he get the DSA at the time? Yeah, he got DSA for RI Hwa Chong, but he didn't go to any of those, no? Why didn't he go to any? So he explained to us, because the father was talking to me, which I told him, I support your decision. The father was talking to me. He says that even though he's good in his studies, yes, but the fact of the matter is that he is not so eloquent. You can still get a 4D by not being good in English. This is a fact at PSLE level. It doesn't mean that you get 4D, you're good in English. No, we can only tell that, and it definitely doesn't mean that you get good at speaking. Many students get 4D without being good in speaking because PSLE is a bell curve, right? So the father said that and he said that they want to go to a school where it's less competitive to give him the confidence to develop himself in other ways, which if he believes that if he goes to some other schools like RI Hwa Chong, he may not get a chance because even though he's good in studies, but he doesn't have the confidence to speak, he doesn't have the confidence to take up leadership. I said, this is fair enough. So where did he go? He went to Bukit Panjang Government High. Okay, so rejected all the DSA, went to Bukit Panjang Government High. There he emerged 4 years later, emerged as the top student, 8A1s. After that, he was ready. So at Bukit Panjang Government High, he had a lot of options. Okay, this leadership position, school opportunities, that contest, everything he had the opportunities. So eventually, 8A1 top student at Bukit Panjang High, he went to Hwa Chong. So you see, there is a school for everybody. So I want you all to think about it. I'm giving you practical advice, okay? So don't go for the brands. The brands is only good at that point in time, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, it's still what you do in the school impression, which is why I told you all, whether you go for Christchurch Secondary School, whether you go for Bowen Secondary School, whether you go for Hougang, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. And last year, we got a couple of 4D students. None of them went to all these schools. They went to schools like Nanqiao, Nanhua, Yusof Ishak. I told them that's totally cool. Chongqing High, I told them that's totally cool. Okay, don't be pressurized just because other schools. I think it's cool. So there's a school for everybody. So I want you to think about your talent domain carefully, because if I want to repeat again, because I'm telling you from experience. Okay, I give you one more example. Rachel. Okay, Rachel So. Okay, Rachel So was a Nanyang Primary School student. Listen carefully, Nanyang Primary School student. She got DSA. At the time, Nanyang girls had chess, but Nanyang girls only chose one person for chess. I know because I was a coach for chess. I was a coach for all the DSA interviews. The interviews did matter. Okay, so anyway, Nanyang girls got one place only, and she got it. Okay, she got it because she did very well in the interview, and national level, she was ranked number 2. This is a fact. But how did she beat the number 1? That's the interview question. That will come another time. So she got only place. But this girl is a little bit unique because she's really gifted in dancing. She's really gifted in dancing. Any genre of dancing, Chinese dance, hip hop, K-pop, natural, pure natural. So, but she didn't understand the implications of the DSA. Once you get in, you cannot change. So she went to Nanyang Girls. I think her PSLE score was around 8 or 9. So she wouldn't have qualified based on the score, but because of the DSA, she went in. So she went in Nanyang Girls very excited. She joined all the auditions for dance, and all the dance CCA all like her because it was clear that she was the best, natural. All wanted her. So she was very happy. She was telling me the teachers wanted her, so I was. Then came the news. I said that, did your teacher know that you got DSA for chess? Because DSA, because you cannot join the other CCA. She said, is that it? I said, yes, because the DSA criteria, you cannot join others. DS chess, you got to join the chess club. He said, no, it's not fair. I said that this is the rules. So what happened? Then the next week, all the dance teachers, Chinese dance, modern dance, found out that she was from chess DSA. So I told her, I'm sorry, we cannot take you in. She cried and cried and cried. Okay? And after that, she didn't have she became very inhibited, okay, and she had to start with chess. So this is something. This is something which you all need to consider, okay. So you do something. If you're passionate about sport, go in. But if you're not so passionate, half, you want to join the talent domain, you may want to think about it because you're going to stuck in it for the next 4 years. Okay, clear? Sports and games tips for interview worth doing. Know your personal best, the date you achieve it, more or less, like you don't need to know. Know about the school's reputation, definitely. Recent school interplays. I think it's important that we know this because all of you would have the results on the website, right? Bring a competition record. You actually don't need to, but you need to be aware because they would actually have your competition record ready, right? Have a story about tough loss or injury. Almost all students I have got this story. Okay, mention teammates and team contribution along with own results. Better way to phrase things, know your timings of scores in well enough to share, state the level accurately, zone, national, age group. I think we need to be very clear about that because many of them do not, when I ask you which level is it, they cannot tell me. Okay, because I think we need to be very specific because whether your zone level, national level is entirely different. Okay, and we don't want you to overinflate because we need to be honest about it. When you say we train hard, give one concrete habit, talk about teammates' contribution you make to them, then ask why this school names something specific. Every school has a sports CCA, right? And as I mentioned previously, most weight in selection sits with the child itself. Use the interview to be yourself. Use the interview to pick up your speaking skills, to hone your speaking skills. Sports and games concepts to be ready to discuss what discipline means to you. Okay, what you take from your team, how you balance sports and studies, how you handle losing, why this sport and not another, one athlete you admire. So all these things are general questions which we should all have some idea. Okay, let me take one question at this point. Toshiro, are you there? Are you from Japan? Toshiro, are you from Japan? It is. No, okay, no, interesting. So don't worry. Because I was just looking at the name, it sounds Jap to me. So no problem. When I DSA, so this is Toshiro's question. When I DSA for leadership and my CC is scouts, does it mean that I must join scouts? Also, no. So it depends. Why I say it depends? Because leadership, so listen carefully, yeah. Leadership, different schools handle it differently. Some schools like RI, your leadership is just a general domain. Just because you join leadership doesn't mean that they choose you to become a prefect. No. It doesn't work this way. It's just that they want to identify potential leaders again. But once you try an RI, you're on your own. Clear? Whereas some schools like Hua Chong, and all these things may change from year to year. Some schools like Hua Chong, if you go under the leadership domain, you are on the track for leadership as a student counselor. So it depends on the school. Okay, but because most schools, leadership, you don't have a specific CCA called leadership. No, you don't have that. So most schools, if you enter leadership, you are not tied to any CCA. So you can join you can join Boy Scout. Not a problem if this is yours, if this is your thing, unless you're type. Okay, clear? So we need to be clear. Like some schools, like for instance, you going through English. Does it mean you join the English club? Not necessarily. It depends on the policies in that respective school. This is always a fact. Okay, right? You may have preferential treatment over when it comes to things like debating or speaking, or let's say you got into maths, you may have special preference over for selection into the maths special track for secondary school, but it really depends on the school. Okay, so the good thing is this. So I just tell you the general rule. If you apply through performing arts, you definitely have got to go through the performing arts DSA. If you apply through sports, you definitely have to go to the sports DSA, CCA. Okay. When it comes to things like leadership and other general things, may not be depending on the school policy. Clear? Clear? Okay. If you apply to like through uniform groups, then if there's a uniform group, then you probably have to go into the CCA. So it really depends. Can I DSA for something that is not my CCA? Of course. So this is the question, of course. Can I DSA for something which is not my CCA? Of course. So, and CCAs in secondary school and primary school are different. Yes, of course. Yeah. As long as you're good in it, as long as they believe you got talent for it, no problem. You don't need to apply for those things which you can handle it. Okay, fine. Performing and visual arts. Important to audition and portfolio again, as I mentioned. And for those of you who are required to submit the personal portfolio and the, what do you call that? And your personal statement, I think you need to be prepared to talk about your personal statement and your portfolio, okay? Because there's a reason why most of the time you're required to submit a portfolio and your personal statement because they want to see what you wrote. And almost all the time they ask you questions based on your personal statement. So I just let you know first, okay? So always be familiar with what you submitted. The interview is to get to know you. Let's talk about this. Performing and visual arts, common questions. Yeah, general. Tell us about your art form, why this one, who or what inspires you. We must always be inspired. Why do you want to pick up still art? How do you handle nerves on stage, especially for performing arts? These are very common questions, okay? Are you nervous? So it depends. Sometimes it's solo, sometimes it's group. Groups so not so nervous, right? Groups not so nervous. How will you contribute to a CCA? What is your most recent performance? Please tell us about it. It did not go well. Often enjoy. Show us your piece of audition. So now Normally number eight would have been done before. Okay, so it depends. Some schools, okay, so the selection varies from school to school. Some schools, they will ask you to submit your pieces first. Okay, then interview you about it. Some schools, you go there, audition, after that, your interview. So it really depends. Okay? But all these things are things which we need to generally have a rough idea. That is what piece you're working on, why matters, performing tasks every. And you see, right now, I gave you a very technical thing. I'm talking about Beethoven, Pathetic Sonata. Do subtractions, they come out. Okay, for music, very specific, they come out. Because the people who interview you are usually the music teachers. That's why I said performing arts sports, they're usually very specific. And some of them are really, really strong. So you have to be prepared. So whatever pieces you have, let's say you play piano, you play the violin, you need to be ready to talk about this. Okay, you may have to go into theory. Sometimes the theory comes out. So that's why I said general, but you don't need to be so specific. Ultimately, the most important thing is still your audition and your trial. Okay, so these questions are good to know, but don't need to be too blur, too obsessed over it. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you. So, Sec 4 student, choir, talent area. Okay, so yes. So you see, once you're able to talk about it, they also know that you're really interested in choir. And some of these places are very competitive. Some of these, okay, so you must understand this. When it comes to things like choir, when it comes to things like dance, the reality that it is a group, they can't really tell, right? So let's say you go for SYF for Chinese dance for this school, but it's a whole group. How do they know whether you are good or not? That's why they always ask you to individually. For most dance, you could dance individually, and most of the time they like ballet. Okay, most of the time they like ballet. They always view it as a foundation for the girls, right? So it is the same thing like choir. Choir, because even if I don't know how to sing, I was in primary school. I just tell you example. When I was in primary school, I was in my school choir. School choir, four of us. Why do they call choir? Because only four of us in my school are good at English, and this is English talent time. We actually won the district, but not because we can sing well, it's because there was no competition. So all I did was that I just opened my mouth, pretend to sing, and I still get the trophy. But does it mean that I'm good enough for choir? Definitely not. But that was so it requires very specific. So for choir, you may have to send your clip. They may ask you to sing on the spot, sounds and adjust. Okay. So these are a bit more specific, so don't need to worry too much. I'm just giving you some examples. And all these questions would have to be okay. This is an important question. Okay, everybody take a look at the question now. Is it a must to submit a portfolio leadership? No, it depends on the school. So you must understand how schools select. You have all submitted your DSA application, right? So MOE central portal is now disseminated to all the schools. Now MOE doesn't come into play anymore. The school chooses who to shortlist. If they want you to submit a portfolio, they will tell you. Okay? They will tell you. But definitely for performing arts, sports, you definitely have got a trial or somewhere. Portfolio, when it comes to things like writing, DSA for English, they want to see your composition, your contest pieces. Yeah, it happens all the time, whether it's SOTA, whether it is RGS, whether it's for MGS, whatever. So it depends on the school. But the personal statement usually, I would say all the time, usually if you're applying for some sort of leadership position, usually a personal statement is involved. But again, it varies from school to school. So you only submit if they ask you to submit. Full stop. Because this is what they call pre-selection. Okay? They want to know more about you. They want to know about what exactly skills you have. They want to what other than the form. Because remember, your DSA application form, which you submitted on the 5th of June, there is no attachment. There is no attachment. So all they have is just those brief sentences. So in order to know you more, they will ask you to submit. So for those of you, let's say for some of you who are asked to applying for some of the schools, English creative writing, you would have been asked to submit your writing pieces already. This is a fact, right? So it depends. Okay, clear? So let's talk about Sec 4 Poly. For those of you who parents here don't know, because I gave a talk on this, your DSA, I gave two separate talks. One is for DSA secondary, the other one is for DSA JC and Poly EA, because the process is different. But for the interview, the process is the same. That's why I'm combining both, right? So example answer for those of you who are Sec 4, you're applying for Poly, right? It is very specific right now to show that EAE is just early admission exercise. It's just DSA, but they call it differently. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. I'll answer some of the questions as I go along. If not, if your DSA concept band, does your SAF score affect your DSA? Definitely, if you get a goal in your SYF, it is something in your record. So it's better, correct? Compared to having a bronze. This will always be a school, but ultimately how they choose is entirely up to them because you're not chosen by your band, you're chosen individually. Okay? You're chosen individually. So if you got track record, it's easier for them to shortlist you. Let me give you an example. So let's say I'm in band. So I tell them, okay, so they ask me, hey, Alvin, can you tell me your band experience? And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not in a school concert band, but I really enjoy playing the drums at home. So I imagine that when I go to secondary school, I can be a good drummer, but I got nothing to show for it. Okay, I got nothing to show for it. So because I got nothing to show for it, it is difficult, right? This is the reality. The MOE wants to talk about potential, but potential is very difficult to judge without some concrete, especially at the P6 level. Performing in visual arts concepts to be ready this. So I'm giving you a template, okay? Because all these things is just thinking through, make it a bit more structured so that you all have right, and then this is useful for you at all levels, right? Why this art form, not another? How you handle stageness, performing arts definitely. What makes a piece work for you? Okay, why are you inspired to play this piece? Why are you inspired to dance this particular dance? Why modern dance? And why do you want to choose modern dance when you have been in Chinese dance all these years? So all these things you must be prepared to to discuss. Okay, I'll take the next question. If I DSA for art, how do I make the portfolio if I never win? Okay, you don't need to win. You don't need to win. Because if I choose just winners, it's going to be difficult. At least we show them that we're interested in art. Then we got things to show them. This is what we mean. Okay. It doesn't mean that you always have to win. But you got to show them you're interested. If you're interested in art, you would have definitely have done some art in the past, correct? Then you got a higher chance. If you say I'm DSA of art, but I got nothing to show. Oh, I plan to learn art when I'm better or after my PSLE. That's not going to cut because you got nothing to show. Okay, this is a very common question. I'll answer this right now. Yeah, this is a very common question. What if a school asks you if you get offer from another school and this school, how to say truthfully, you will go to the other school? Okay, who who is a student here? Because we're going to do this question live. Okay, for the student who asked this, I want you to unmute yourself and we will try. So this is a learning for everybody. Ash, what's the name? ANSH. I don't know who you are. ANSH. Okay, I'll answer this question with you live. This live is always a good chance. It's a good chance for you to practice. It's a good chance for you to learn. Okay, Ash. Okay, you raise your hand, right? Can you unmute yourself and maybe you can introduce yourself? Hi. What is your name? Hello? ANSH is the short form, right? Hello?
Hello,
Hi. What is your name?
my name is Anj.
Anj. Okay, Anj. Anj, right? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes,
Okay, Anj. Where are you studying now?
which primary school?
Okay, good. What DSA did you apply to?
Um,
Sorry, can you speak louder?
I applied for math recently.
Okay, I sorry, I cannot hear you clearly. Can you type it? I need to know a couple of things because I'm going to ask my questions. Okay, I need you to tell me, type in the chat box because I cannot hear you clearly. Tell me what DSA schools you applied to and tell me which talent domain. You applied for mathematics, okay? Which school? Various schools have academic domains. So which school did you apply to? Because there are only very few schools with mathematics domain. Which schools did you apply to? Very, very few schools with maths domain. I know, but I just want to tell me what schools did you apply to?
Uh,
Okay,
I
I saw your answer right now. You applied to Victoria School NUSI. So everything is maths, right? Correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So let me ask you this question because I'm going to frame my question. So let's say I am trying to help you. I need to understand. In order by ranking, what's how are you going to choose the schools?
Uh, First is Raffles, then second is NUS, and third is Victoria.
Okay, so let's do the interview right now. I'm a teacher at Victoria School. Okay, I'm a teacher at Victoria School. So I ask you this question, right? Ash, why do you want to join Victoria School? I want everybody to listen and learn. So Ash, why do you want to join Victoria School?
Because I can improve my math skills in this school.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. Can you type it down? I think there's something wrong with your mic. I'm not able to hear you clearly. So I need to type down so that I can tell everybody. It's important that we go through this process, okay? Tell me why you want to join Victoria School. Can you type it down? Then I'll let everybody know what you typed down. Because it is a learning process. Why I want to show this? Because these are all very common. Okay, now you see, and this is a very common mistake. Everybody take a look. because I think I can improve my math skill in this school. So are you saying that all the other schools, you cannot improve your math skill? So you see, this is what I mean by a very general answer. And many kids say that. Is it a good answer? No, it's definitely not a good answer. But that's why we're having these sessions, right? Why? So this is a very general answer. So are you telling me you can improve my math skill in this school? Then what about the other schools? So are you telling me that all secondary schools in Singapore, you cannot improve your math skill? So why this particular? So it is a very general answer, right? So I ask you this question: why do you want to join Victoria School? Now you give an answer because I can improve my math skills in Victoria School. So I want everybody to think about it, but this is common. Whether it's a JC, whether it's even in university, I teach all this, and it's a very common. It's not so easy for you to answer. That's why I'm teaching you all, right? So think about it. How can you improve this? Okay, now my next question is this, what other schools did you apply to? So you're going to tell me, okay, again, things like interesting program. Okay, so I see another answer here. I want to join this school, interesting program, vague. Remember yesterday I told you, no. Don't give me vague things, culture, interesting program. Give me the name of the program. Since you say it's very interesting, since you want to join maths in my school, you better know what this maths program is. Maybe they come with a special maths program, the Galileo Archimedes program, whatever. Bring it out. No telling me things like general, like the culture is good, the program is good. Tell me what program, why is it interesting, what is unique about it to that school. You must be able to talk about it. Okay, so all these things cannot work. Okay, that's why I want you all to give your answers. Clear? How to handle interviews. And what I'm teaching you now is a life skill. It's not just for DSA. DSA for me is minor. Okay, but what I'm telling you applies to all stages of your life going forward. If you want to ace all the interviews going forward, which is a really important life skill. This is one reason why I'm conducting this. Okay. Let's talk about, okay, now Ash, let me ask you the question right now. So I ask you, Ash, what other schools, very common DSA question, it actually appears 95% of the time, okay, whether it's JC or Polytechnic or secondary, it applies 95% of the time. So I ask you, what other DSA schools did you apply to? So Ash, you're going to say, I applied for Victoria School, I applied for RI, I applied for NUS High, correct? Correct, Ash?
Yes.
Okay, so right now I ask you, if all three schools make you an offer, which school would you choose? Again, it's a very common question. How are you going to answer? So I want everybody to think about it. It's a very common question. So I see this quite. What if you lie about applying to other schools? Okay, so the student asked me, I want you to put in is concept, right? Concept. Tell me what you mean by lying. So if I ask you this question, so assuming they're in Ash position, wow, how are you going to answer? You see, there's a reason why I'm teaching you this, because it is the same thing. Like if I ask you in a job interview, like last time, I was actually doing very, very well at Pricewaterhouse. I was one of the top few performers, which is why they sent me all over the world. I was under bond. They paid for my chartered accountancy, and I did a lot of things. And they sent me worldwide to give talks because I was good in quite a number of things, right? So when I was in university, at the time, for those of you in the finance, you will know that there are a few, what they call in finance field, they are called the big four, right? PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, E&Y. In my time, it was called the Big Six because there were some mergers. I had all six offers, I had all six offers in fact, I believe I was the only one at the university who had all six offers as a year 3 student, not because I was the best student, but because I could handle all the group interviews and what. And it was a very common question they asked me. What other offers did you have from the other Big Six? Okay, so think about it. How did I answer that question, which enabled me to get each and every one of them? Okay, so this is a question which I think you all need to think. Okay, now this is a very common thing which I need to address this as well.
How do you
Hold on, I want everybody to take a look question. Hi, I have a question. Can the interviewers see what other schools are applying? No. Zero. They can't. It's a very common misconception that you find it being spread on the internet. Some parents tell their friends, some teachers tell you. No, it's not correct. The schools won't know what you apply for. So this is how the MOE centralized system works, right? MOE collects last time after 2019, they have a centralized portal. That's why your MOE centralized portal. So let's say you apply for Victoria School, you apply for RI, you applied for NUS High. On the closing date, after the 5th of June, this year closing date, all these 3 applications are now routed individually to the school. So Victoria School will only see your application, but they do not see which are your options. They only see this student applied for Victoria School under this talent domain. Now my question is, should I shortlist him? Okay, clear? The other schools will not see who you interviewed. So that's why they ask this question. Okay? Fine. So you think about it. So I want everybody to prepare for this. Then I will answer this Q&A, or you can send some of the answers to me. But I think everybody has got to prepare for this question because it's extremely common. Okay. Now I'm just choosing at random some questions I see. So everybody take a look at this question. Hi, teacher Alvin. I applied DSA for leadership, but I have gotten AL1 for mathematics overall in P5 and then 1 for maths on P1. If I'm also assistant head for my curricular activity for Boys Brigade, what should I do if I get an offer from a school that does not? Okay, so to answer these questions, okay, a couple of things you need to understand. You need to be very specific when you ask me these questions, because the questions I'm getting are very specific to the school. Number one, you got to tell me what school you apply for. You cannot just tell me I applied for this school special. I need to know the school. Okay, and why? Because the school you apply to matters. Some schools are a lot more competitive. Some schools are not so competitive. Okay, clear? So you got to tell me what school you applied to and which talent domain. This is the reality. I need to know this before I can only talk about it. And I will tell you so that everybody has a broad idea. Generally, leadership, a lot of students apply. Why? Because it is universal. So they are maybe CCA head, they are prefect, they're everything, everybody will try to apply, correct? But just imagine there are so many candidates. How did they shortlist? So this is what I told you. Yes, yesterday, like when I was teaching physical classes at my stretcher, I had 28 head prefects. 28 head prefects from GEP schools and from mainstream. 28, not counting prefects, not counting deputy head prefects, 28 prefects. How many got the DSA? 6. Okay, so it is very competitive, right? So it's a very competitive. So we need to understand. And is the competition equal for all schools? No. So if you go for the more competitive schools, the competition is a lot tougher. This is a fact. So let's say you apply for, let me give you an example. If let's say you apply for bowling at ACSI versus bowling at maybe a school like St. Patrick. I'm just giving an example, okay? Definitely the level of competition is different. ACSI, the level of competition is definitely going to be a lot higher than the level of competition for bowling at St. Patrick. Which one will offer you higher chance? Definitely St. Patrick. So this is the reality of the situation. That's why whenever I ask questions, I need to know a couple of things. What school you're applying to, what talent domain you're applying to. And let me give you a general idea, and which is what I said in my DSA talks. 100%, the most competitive domain academically is always mathematics. Okay, so I repeat, the most competitive, that means you're going to have the most number of students applying for mathematics, followed by science, followed by the languages in this particular order. Okay, in this particular order. That also I said in my DSA talk. So anytime you are in this, now it depends on what school. Some schools a lot more difficult to get in, some schools a little bit easier. But still the competition is there, okay? So do all the schools know if you have selected their schools? They won't know. They won't know. So again, I repeat, I want to clarify this important misconception. Listen, so I'm going to put in those which are misconceptions. I want to put it here. Okay, your DS, let's talk about, so take a look at this important question. So I'm clarifying all misconceptions. Okay, do the schools know, if I have selected their school as my first or second choice? They won't know. When your DSA, you put in 3 schools, right? This is not ranked. I repeat, when you put your schools in your DSA form, these are not ranked. Even though you input RI first, second NUS High, third Victoria School, they are not ranked, It's just how you put it. They are not ranked. What is ranked is when you get the confirmation officer offer or your waiting list. Now, this is ranked. So let's say Ash, let's say eventually you get offers from these 3 schools. Then what you put in the MOE portal is now ranked. Let's say you're on a waiting list for RI. You must put first choice RI so that you're in the waiting list. Second choice NUS High. Third choice Victoria School. This again is MOE only. The other schools won't see. Am I clear? Anything which goes through the portal, the other schools won't see. The school only sees the application coming in, then they don't know what schools you apply to. They don't know what schools have accepted you. Okay, clear? There's no collaboration. Every school wants the best students to go to them. So why should they collaborate? It simply doesn't make sense. Okay, clear? So I hope I clarified this. Okay, let's go on first. We'll talk individually about these questions. Performing arts, what is arts? Literary arts. Literary arts is a broad term, and this actually came into popularity a couple of years ago. Creative writing, literary studies, literature, talent domains. Who is your favorite author? And always tell you must know, especially when it comes to writing. What about writing pulls you in? Okay, what is your writing style? How would you describe it? How do you write a strong composition, essay? And usually for all these things, you need to submit a portfolio of your writing. Just give me an example. Tell us a recent piece or your own writing. What's the difference between a good first line and a forgettable one? Tell us a book which changed how you read other books. So all these things, we must prepare for it. Okay, we must prepare for it. Literary arts. Poetry analysis. Okay, I'm teaching you right now because unless you're in secondary school, you may have been exposed to poetry, but primary school, you have not been exposed to poetry. When you go to Sec 1 and Sec 2, regardless of whether you go to IP school or not, you always have poetry analysis. Okay, we'll talk more in secondary school because I will teach all this as well. It's important because many students go to secondary school, they're always stuck in a few areas, don't know how to do literature, don't know how to do poetry analysis, which I don't blame them because these are not taught in schools. They just give it to you. That's it. It doesn't matter whether IP or not. So depending on the school, some schools, the whole year, 0 composition. I repeat, you go to Sec 1, Sec 2, whole year, 0 essay. And these are the very competitive schools. That's why I say you need to know the system. Okay? What they hand you, usually a short poem. So it depends. Often 6 to 20 lines. I'm just giving you an example how to handle it well. I don't want to go through because this is not an English lesson. This is not a poetry lesson. I'm just giving you a flavor. Does it come out? Yes. So poetry analysis, a work example, just a sample. And sometimes these auditions or trials may come in the form of a discussion. Okay? 2 years ago, I was helping one student with RGS English DSA. And I gave her a poem. It was just a random, thousands and thousands. I just gave her a poem, random, and I thought how to analyze it. And by a huge coincidence, RGS came up with exactly the same poem. It's not because I can forward, because there are literally thousands and thousands, but they happen to choose the one which I gave her. Did they help her? Of course, because right now we know exactly what to talk about, right? So I'm just giving you an example. So even if you're not familiar, no problem. You're not competing against me. Okay, you're not competing. You're competing against other primary school students, other JCs, other secondary 4 students, even in the talent domain. So don't worry, chill. As long as able to explain, reason it out, give your own opinion, that's cool. Okay? So I won't, but are there techniques to evolve? Yes, I think maybe, but this is something which I realized that many students are weak, even all the way for those who are taking literature in secondary school. Sec 1 and Sec 2, all of you would have to take literature, whether it's part of a language arts literature distinct subject, which poem comes into play. I will have such courses next year to help everybody because I realize it's a big problem for all schools. Okay, I won't go through this, but this is just to give you an idea. These are some of the techniques. Debate and public speaking. Debate and public speaking just became a domain recently. Okay, so it depends. Usually, when it comes to debate and public speaking, you have to speak. There are no two ways about it. And it can come in many different forms. They may ask you to debate. They give you a motion, you debate on the spot. When I say debate on the spot, it's unlikely that you're debating against another person. You just need to give your stand on the matter. So I give you this motion. This house believes that school uniform should be optional for all students. Talk about it. So you take a stand, agree or disagree. There's no right or wrong answer. As long as you substantiate it. Give examples, explain the reason behind it. Okay, they're not going to give you something difficult. They're not going to give you something abstract, like, do you think carbon emissions is an indication of the economy? Do you think that carbon emissions should really be banned for all cars in Singapore? No, this is too high level for students of your own level. It should always be general things which you can talk about. Do you think the death penalty, second JC students, do you think the death penalty should be abolished? The pros and the cons. So these are just expository, argumentative essays, right? So yeah, these are all technical debate questions, okay? But so most of the time when it comes to debate at your level is really just go out there and speak. Okay, all these questions are incidental. The most important thing is your speaking, as I always mentioned, right? And it can come in many different forms. Some of them can, yeah, this is at Sec 4 level. So obviously the topics are a little bit higher, okay? At the last, and the motion was this house regrets the use of social media activism. Now, this is something which primary school students will never get because it's too low level. But at Sec 4, JC, yes, this may come up because if you want to go to debate, generally you must have some experience in debate. Otherwise, you won't get in, right? Otherwise, you won't get in, right? So I'm just giving examples. I won't go through in great detail. Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with all these things because I teach students all these things as well in master speakers or in general through the common platforms. While doing small things that go a long way, I think STEM is coming out, I think. Have one current affairs topic to talk about in depth. And for those of you who are aspiring to go for debate and everything, you really need to read the papers. Okay, I repeat now. You really need to read the papers, okay, to give you that better edge. Yeah. So again, I won't go through all these things. You can read about all of this in the notes because all these things are very specific. But just to give you a flavor, dramatic monologue is important. Last year, I was training some students at Victoria School. The English and Debating Club, they were choosing one student for dramatic monologue, or one student for debate and public speaking, but involves a debate and a dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue, you must know how to do it. Because you see, even in secondary school, some schools do literature dramatic monologue for 2 years, but it's not dramatic. You need to have the emotions, you need to have the kanjue. You are expressing yourself through the monologue. Okay, not reading. Many students, secondary school students do it like reading. You're not training. Dramatic monologue. Okay, how to handle well, again, a short solo performance. So your actions, your mannerism, all these things must come out. And usually they will give you the monologue. They ask you to choose. Okay? And these are all auditions already. They give you advanced monologue, ask you to choose, go there, you perform. Okay, literally perform. I'm just giving you an example. Right? This is from Shakespeare. Okay? So it's not just, you cannot just do that all the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely players. They're the exits and entrances. No, you got to read it with emotions. You know, last year at the National Poetry Recitation Contest, my freshman and master speakers had 14 finalists out of 44 nationwide. Primary school, secondary school, JC, and adult. We had 25% of all finalists performing, competing at the National Library. As I was teaching all of them, you gotta have the emotions. I'm not just asking you to read. So how did they qualify for the finals, which is really difficult? Read with emotions, okay? Not just read, act. Okay, that's why it's called a dramatic monologue, right? So you cannot just read all the words on stage, all the women and men. It's not gonna work because I'm not asking you to read. You're not reading for your PSLE. You're not reading for your O levels. You're not reading for your polytechnic. You are acting. In fact, dramatic monologue is acting with emotions, with your body gestures, and so forth, so forth. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go through. I'm just training this. So debate how to structure your answer. General. I'm not going to teach you a technical debate. No, I'm just teaching you general, which is important for everybody to know. Take a stand, make two supporting points, acknowledge your strongest counter, close your conclusion. Okay, why strongest counter? So they counter propose it. Okay, but all these things are very specific, so I won't go through in great details. It's for those of you interested, you can read. Okay, so public speaking, all these things, because these are very specialized, right? Science, maths, and engineering. Now, STEM, Olympiads, robotics, research. Okay, general questions. Okay, STEM, you must understand. What does STEM stand for? So suppose you must know. STEM, what? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So you must understand the word engineering. What does engineering mean to you? Engineering, adults, engineering was STEM. So it's a very big word. Okay, but the reality is that do all students have engineering at this level? The answer is no. The answer is no, but they put it here anyway. Okay, but engineering can mean many things depending on what you want it to be engineered, because I can engineer a lot of things. You see, even the way I use it. So engineering for us, for most people, they think that engineering has to go with chemical engineering, electronical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering. Yes, more than engineering is only one part of it. Engineer as an English word can also be, I engineered that project, I engineered his demise. It can be a noun, it can be a verb. So depending, but here it's definitely got to do with the engineering element. But the reality is that you don't have engineering, so it's just a sexy term to use, okay? So general questions across all academic panels at both DSA, JC, why STEM? Okay, in STEM, there are many different subjects, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Tell me, which part of STEM excites you the most? Okay, what do you do when you get stuck? Because all of us are, and usually all these things you must have done some hands-on. Okay, you must have done. So what do you do when you get stuck? What field of maths or science interests you and why? They're generally not going to ask you about engineering, because none of you have the engineering element in the real sense of the word here. Why our school program over the others? So again, why do you want to join STEM for this school? And STEM, some schools have, some schools don't have. So again, you can actually limit the number of schools which actually offer STEM, and the way to choose is all different. Tell us about a problem project you worked on. Have you taken any Olympiads contests? Tell us about one. If you could solve any problem in the world, this is a very common question. If you could solve any problem, what would it be? I think we always need to talk about problems because we need to be problem solvers. Our world has many problems, right? So how can we make use of science engineering? Many problems can be solved with science, but not all can be solved with science and mathematics. This is the reality, right? Subject-specific questions follows your domain. Okay, so general questions, these are all which we need to prepare for. And sometimes for STEM, you would also have to go to hands-on. They may ask you to solve a problem. So as I gave you the example about building straws, okay, all of you should work together to build a stable bridge using straws. This was a STEM DSA. Okay, STEM DSA. Why? Because to see how you work together, whether you got engineering concepts, and every student is different. Okay, every student is different. So for instance, I give you an example of one of our students. This student was from Nanyang Primary School. Now, as I always mention to parents, right, don't always stereotype them, don't always force them to do things which, you want to be doctor, engineering, everybody got to do this. But kids are all different. So this student was at Nanyang Primary School. He was a very hardworking student, very, very pleasant student. Okay, but the father always wants to pressurize him, must study this, study this, you must go to Hwa Chong, you must go to ACSI. But no, he said that, so he was having a discussion with me, and he said that my dream is to enter SST. I said, that's a great choice. I just want to clarify, SST is not a poor cousin of NUS High. People always think that, oh, I cannot get NUS High, I go to SST. No, they're all different specialized school. NUS High is very theoretical and academic. SST is very hands-on. Okay, so you must understand that. So there are two different branches. Do we have students? I will tell you, I've got students, we've got students. Praishan, I think, Praishan, are you here? Praishan, are you here? Praishan is a fantastic speaker. Very, very big. I think all the top RA debaters cannot challenge him. Why? Because he's on my class. Cannot challenge him. Super good at speaking. But all these things was nurtured along the way. Right now, I think all the RI debaters against him, they're all in big trouble because the way he thinks super fast. Right? All these things is nurtured along the way. Right? So it doesn't mean that you cannot get him, you cannot do it. He's also a public speaking champion. So it doesn't mean that we limit ourselves. So again, so I tell you about this Nanyang Primary student. he's not academic inclined, but he's very good with design and his hands. And true enough, when he went to SST, he got a DSA to SST because when they asked him to do hands work to build this engineering, in that sense, he was very good. So he aced it, he entered NUS, he entered SST, and SST, his talent bloomed. So he was one of the top students there, and he could do everything with his MacBook in terms of design and technology, which is good. Then he represented the school to go for contests internationally. So that's why I said we must all realize that all kids are different. Okay, all kids are different. Don't compel them to go into certain. At the end of the day, it's easy to compel them, but if they don't like it, it's tough. And we must all realize that all of us are really different. Okay, all of us are really different. Mathematics domain specific questions. I'm giving you real examples because all these things, and they can even mathematics very specific. Is mathematics good? You go for your selection test. After that, some tests you may even ask them to solve on the spot right in front of you. Okay, I'm giving you an example. For instance, the NUS High. It can be. They ask you which talent domain interests you most, science or mathematics. You mention mathematics. They come up with 3 questions on the spot. Solve them. Okay, these are real scenarios. Okay, so this is I'm just giving you an example. What is the proof of a theorem? All these things are a bit technical, but they do come out. That's why I'm sharing them with you. What's the proof of theorem? Why? For mathematics, you think about it. When you go to secondary school, you realize the difference between theories, hypothesis. What's the proof of a theorem? Because once you can prove that this formula can be substantiated, everything now can be derived from it. Why can we send rockets to the moon? Why can we fly aeroplanes? Why can we have an electric vehicle? Why do we have computers? All these things are mathematical computations based on proven theorems. Everything is mathematics. When you go higher level, you realize that physics, everything is mathematics. Everything is mathematics. Right now at primary school, for those of you who are Sec 4 right now, you realize that physics at your level, 50% mathematics, Sec 4 level. If you go to JC, I think it's 95% mathematics already. Okay? Yeah. Where at primary school level, PSLE level, it's not mathematics, it's just concept. This is why you always more than, less than. This object absorbs more heat compared to that object, and why you explain. But when you go to secondary school, upper side, everything is now computation. How much energy did it absorb? Right? So all these are computations right now. So domain specific questions like I'm just giving you an example, right? So you need to be able to talk about some of these. Which aspects of mathematics is unlikely to be your PSLE question because you really need to be interested in mathematics, right? So do you prefer geometry, algebra, combinatorics analysis? I'm just giving you some example, okay? Quick problem solving. Tell us a math problem you've been stuck on. How do you approach a problem which you've never seen before? Which is important because if you're good at mathematics, everything is a fresh perspective. If you come across a problem you've never seen before, how? So different people, different ability, okay? The only subject which I'm naturally good at is English. So English I never had to study. I just go for my exam. I sit for it. Whether it's an RI, any exam, I don't need to practice. I just sit for it because that is something which I am naturally good at. But when it comes to mathematics, I'm sorry. I need to practice the past year papers. I need to do all the past year papers. I need to do all the past school exam papers. Then I can do. No problem. But you give me a maths question, maths Olympiad question, which I've never done before, never seen before, sayonara. Thank you very much. I cannot solve it because I'm not good in mathematics. I'm good in studying for mathematics if it is exam. Exam, anything to do with exam, not a problem. O level, A level, university, not a problem. Give me something different. Sorry, I cannot do it. So all of us are different. So it's important. Which mathematician inspires you the most? There are many famous mathematicians in the world. Come up with one to show that at least you're interested. Okay. Science specific question. Like one of the students, there was one year when I taught all the NUS students, and that particular year, the students I happened to teach, I taught around 7 of them. Actually, 5 of them got into NUS in that group, out of the 7 in that group which I was teaching. And I told them, like, that year came out with this black hole, right? Black hole, the first photograph of the black hole. I said, talk about the black hole. Okay, what reasons? Because it's a very fascinating. Black hole has always been a theoretical subject, but it has never been captured. Right now, you got evidence, proven. You prove Einstein's theory of relativity, you prove the black hole theory. So you see, when you talk about all these things, people know you're interested. The reason why I can talk about all these things is that, notwithstanding that I am naturally good in English, my best subject in RI, everything was my science. All my science and mathematics, they were all high scores, okay? So that's why I'm good. I can talk about all these things. And mainly because I'm interested. So even right now, every week, I read science journals. Anything to do with science, I'm pretty interested. And we need to develop the interest of reading. People think there's nothing more than skill of mathematics. Last year, amazing. All of you in secondary school, you would know, or maybe in primary school, some of you would know, GP students, you may know the Pythagoras theorem, right? A square, B square was C square. Last year, two girls discovered many different ways to prove this. They thought that was impossible because right now, if you study in school, you got to do it backwards, proving of the theorem. That's what happens in all exam. So when the two young girls, 12 and 13, submitted the proof of theorem to the maths teacher, the maths teacher could not believe it, that they could actually come up with 13 ways of proving this theorem, unheard of. Sent to all the maths professors, they said that, whoa, never thought that it could be done this way. So you see, there are always things, if you're really interested in mathematics, right? So what's the most frustrating thing? So I think all these things we need to prepare to show your interest. So again, for science questions, right, you may be asked, and these are real scenarios, okay, again, defense, you may be asked, which branch of science fascinates you the most? Science, physics, chemistry, biology. Then depending on what you say, they may pull out the questions, okay? At NUS High, depending on what you say, they may, okay, since you like physics, let's watch this video and you answer the questions, okay? So remember, don't need to be stressed. These are not like you need to be exceptionally good. It just requires you to think, okay? So don't need to be stressed. We are not asking you for physics university questions, so don't worry, chill. They will always test you at your level, but more importantly, how you apply. Maths and science especially, okay? Maths and science especially. Example answer, Sec 4. Yeah. For those of you in Sec 4, you know about polynomial. For those of you in primary school, you won't know this term yet. I'm just giving an example because I want to try to address many things as possible. As I mentioned, all these things, especially mathematics, the most important thing is a maths problem solving ability. Okay, I repeat, maths, most important thing is a most problem solving ability. Even if I cannot speak well, I'll still get it if my maths is number one. I'll give you one example. When I was teaching, all these things are real examples, okay? When I was teaching, all my classes are full, okay? So it was this class in Clementi. So my class in Clementi had half GP students coming from Henry Park and Nanhua, and the other half were all usually the top students, except for one student, this Korean boy. Okay, this Korean boy was one school in Jurong. Unlike the other students, all the other students are top 5 in their school. Top GP student or top 5 in their school. So and in that class, I still remember in that class got 4 students, platinum winners of the Hwa Chong Maths. 4 students, and these are all the top students of their schools, platinum holders. Now you see what happened, So many of them, as I said, applied for mathematics, so they went for mathematics. All right. So you see what happened. So when after the next week, after the lesson, I was asking them because I wanted to see how they did in the RI test, right? So RI had 18 questions. So when I asked the platinum maths holders, could you do all the maths questions? They said that, Mr. Kuek, I cannot do all the maths questions. I only did 12 out of 18. Okay, and remember, all these 4 platinum holders happen to be the top student of their respective primary schools as well. Okay, so most of them did between only 8 to 12. These are the top students in their school, plus GP students. Then I asked the Korean boy. The Korean boy, top 20 in his school, not even top 5, now top 20, very, very quiet. Cannot really speak. Okay, but I know this guy is a maths prodigy. I know for South Korean, I know he's a maths prodigy from Seoul. So I asked him, you were shortlisted? Because when I see his math results, I know he has to be shortlisted for RI Maths, right? So I asked him, did you do all the 18 questions? He told me, Mr. Kuek, yeah, I did it. I did it with half an hour to spare. So I checked my answers 3 times. In my mind, you get it, even if you cannot really speak. True enough, he got a direct entry to RI, based on, even though he cannot speak, because his maths is Motak Tank. My other students, the 4 platinum holders, 2 of them were on the waiting list, the other 2 were rejected. So I'm just giving you an example. That's why I said, depending on what, ultimately, you must be strong in your talent domain. Okay, clear? Clear? So I'm just giving you, these are real examples I'm sharing with all of you. So that's why I said the passion must come true. Poly, I won't go through this because I don't think many Poly students are here. STEM concepts ready to discuss the difference between knowing and understanding. Yes, I think a real example for all studies, the difference between knowing and understanding. What do you mean by knowing and what do you mean by understanding? I think this is important. I think this is a general principle, especially those who are going to IP schools. I tell you this. Many times students get into trouble in IP school because the school does too fast or it's too difficult. Again, I repeat, I'm not a fan of subjects being very difficult because I think it's very bad. It's very bad for, if you're super academic smart, it's fine. But if you're not so academic smart, you are in trouble. That's why I say you go to IP school, some of you may have to, not all IP schools, some are pretty easy, some are average, some are really, really hard. This is the truth. Okay? So there's the difference in knowing. If you just know but you don't understand, you cannot solve the more difficult questions. You cannot solve the application questions. Even the basic questions you cannot solve. This will always be true. Okay, why proof matters? Yeah. Why is the proof more important than result? This I'm just giving you at all levels. Okay, at primary 6 DSA, you're not expected to know this, but for more specific, really Tokong one, you may be asked because it shows your interest in science and maths. Science and mathematician, you study scientists, you got a lot famous. Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, anybody, Niels Bohr, atomic structure, anything, even the current one, right? About EV, supercomputers, many. Mathematics, what scientific thinking, just how to stay curious. And I want to get to know, because science discoveries happens almost every week. Mathematics not so common, because mathematics, there have been mathematical problems, we have been there for decades. They cannot prove it. Once they cannot prove it, it cannot be a theorem. You understand? There are some universal maths problem which have confounded mathematicians for decades and still cannot solve it because they cannot prove it. Okay, but science discoveries quite regular. That's why you need to be aware. So I always suggest, if you're in STEM, please make sure you read the papers or Google, read something, science discoveries, which shows that you know. Very, very important. It shows that you're active, shows that you're really passionate, shows that you're reading beyond your books. And this is important. So mathematics, you want to discoveries every week, but science, yeah, it's very common. So please make sure you know. Okay? So STEM. Languages and humanities, bilingualism, literature, history, geography. Okay, at this level, you don't have history, geography. The reason I put history, geography, economics is for the JC students. Right? Primary 6 level usually is only at bilingualism. Okay. Common questions. I'm not going to throw everything. And for humanities, like humanities got to do with anything that is non-mathematical, non-scientific. Okay, so anything that involves writing a lot, it becomes under languages and humanities. So geography, economics, any English, Malay, Chinese, they all fall under humanities. Okay, yeah. P6, bilingualism, it comes in many different forms. I repeat, but generally in bilingualism, definitely English and Chinese will be involved. So bilingualism, unfortunately, it doesn't apply to the other languages. You don't have English and Malay, you don't have English and Hindi, English and Tamil is usually, because these are all the SAP schools, usually. Okay, so only the SAP schools have bilingualism, whether it's Nanqiao, Nanhua, whether it's Chongqing, whether it's Hua Chong, Nanyang Girls, and so forth, right? So bilingualism and the interview can be conducted entirely in Chinese. It can be. So for those of you preparing for bilingualism, you got to prepare for answers in both English and Chinese, because some of my students get a shock. I told you that you got to prepare in Chinese, because some of them are very ang mo pai, very speak English. But I said that you're going for bilingual. How can you not prepare? He said that I was stunned when the teacher asked me to only speak in Chinese. This was at Nanyang Girls. I said, I told you that you got to prepare because you're applying for bilingualism. So it come in many different forms. They can give you a video clip, ask you English, ask you to translate. They can give you a poem, ask you to distill its essence. So it really depends. Some schools are easier, some schools quite hard. But if you're good, it really doesn't matter. If you're really, really good, I think you can always manage. Remember, you're not competing against experts, you're only competing against students your age. So chill, chill. Don't have too pressure. Okay? Cool. I'm just giving you an examples. Okay, so humanities, language, what bilingualism really means to you. Some schools. Okay, so how do you handle a SAP school? Okay, for me, SAP schools are always the easiest. You want to join this school, you want to join Nanhua, you want to join Nanchao because it has a very strong bilingual culture. And as a Chinese, I wish to immerse myself more in Chinese because I am now quite proficient in English. Chinese is probably something which I really, really want to work on because Chinese and English are the two lingua franca of the world. So that's why it's my dream to join Nanchao Primary School. I think it's fair. So anything to do with SAP answers, SAP schools, you can always got a good reason. Strong in Chinese culture. And you want to immerse yourself because China, everybody knows China. Everybody knows, yeah. In fact, the two languages which we need to know in the world today, only two, English and Chinese, right? English and Chinese. And China is an amazing superpower. Okay, very, very difficult to compete against the Chinese right now. This is the reality. The reason why the West is always against China is always also because of the jealousy component. This is true. It's very difficult to replicate the Chinese ecosystem and technology. And this is a valid reason why you want to join a particular SAP school, okay? A variety of text you return to, why language matters in the future, why translation is hard. These are just some ideas for you, okay? Leadership, common topic. Common questions? Okay, let's think about the... Okay, so I'm just looking at some questions. If I didn't handle those questions today, don't worry, I'll handle them next time. So my talent domain is leadership for SJI Catholic High and Mary Stella High. Okay, fine. Okay, so it's good. The leadership and the way they choose may be different. Okay, the way they choose may be different. You all have my phone number, right? So in case, are the interviews generally group or individual? It really depends on the school. Okay, it really depends on the school. For leadership, generally, I'm not saying all the time, generally there's a group element, generally. So depends on the school. Sometimes it's just the group element, then they ask you interviews during the session itself. Some schools, group element, group interview, then after that, solo interview on another day. So it really depends on the school, okay? There's no one size fits all. Okay, clear? Clear about this? If you DSA concept band to a SAP school, could the interview be Chinese? No, very unlikely, very unlikely, very unlikely, okay? Because most of these, as you know, most of these schools are in English. English is the English is the first language, right? So all of us got to be proficient in English. Only if you do bilingualism, then you may have the Chinese element. So no concept band, most important concept band is your performance. If there's any interview, it will likely to be English. It's very, very unlikely to be in Chinese. Yeah. Okay, so for the student who asked this, what's the name? Gerald Ho. I'm applying for music elective program DSA. So again, I want to ask you what school? Very few schools have music elective, but I want to go to science stream, not art stream. If I mention this in my interview with no, I should not apply. So again, what music elective are you applying? Because music elective, they're assessing you based on your musical abilities. Your musical abilities has nothing to do with your science stream because you can still be in a science stream. You can still, okay, Gerald, thank you for answering my question. Gerald, do you have my phone number? Because for the JC ones, please ask me. Gerald, my phone number is 92363662. For those of you who are applying and once you have your dates, you may want to WhatsApp me so I can give you some advice. Okay, so so Gerald, so it's unusual for the stream. No, it really doesn't matter because so it depends on how your school structure it. So let's say you go to a JC with a music elective program. A music elective program, it can work in many different ways. It can be an extra subject. It can be a subject in place of another A-level subject. That's about it. You can still be in the science stream. Okay, so right now for JCs, they're a lot more flexible here right now. Okay, so if I mention this, my interview, will you find my chances? No, not really. Okay, because your music elective program. So let me ask you something, Gerald. When you talk about music elective program, what music are you applying to and which JC is it? Okay, so there's the difference. I just tell in advance for all students. The difference between DSA secondary, this is why I had separate sessions. DSA secondary and DSA JC. DSA JC, you apply to the individual JC. It's not centralized portal. Okay? DSA secondary, centralized portal. So everything is through the MOE portal. DSA JC, individual JC, individual deadlines. Music elective programs. Vice prefect primary school. If I mention my position with it, totally. And any time when you're vice prefect, student leader, you got to weave it somewhere in your answer so it becomes better. So not to worry. Today I didn't give you some samples of how you can structure answers. I'm going to create a document for all these questions, leadership, whatever. I'm going to give you a sample. Okay, a sample. It's not a model. So that you have some ideas on how you can. So definitely, if you're vice prefect in primary school, I think you should mention it somewhere, even though they have it already, but sometimes you just mention. To give an example of how you can mention, this is with respect to Candice, right? So as the head prefect of my school, I make it a point. So you really woven it in your answer by just mentioning the part as the head prefect of my school. Okay, so Gerald for ACJs going to music elective programs, exactly. So this is the point which I'm trying to tell you, right? Because it's a music elective program, as I mentioned just now, you must take one subject in place. Okay? But it doesn't mean that you're an art stream, because if you take others, so I'm just giving you an example. You go to ACJC, okay? You go to ACJC, you take H2 music, you take H2 chemistry, you take H2 biology, you take H1 and H2 maths or econs, you are still considered, it's not exactly an arts, it can be a mixture as well. Now you have the flexibility. Okay, Gerald, does it answer your question? Okay. Yes, okay, so I give you all my phone number, important. So anytime you got these interviews, I will try my best to help you, okay? So please take down my idea, okay? Okay, I'm going to answer this question here as well. I'm going to answer these two questions. Listen, first question, when will you tell us the dates and timing for leadership DSA? Now, the schools work in a few ways. Listen carefully. Different schools method. If you get shortlisted, you should hear from them. You should hear from them latest. Very, 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 very latest by late July. Very, very latest. Because anytime you go to August, you got your oral exam, you got your O-levels, you got a PSLE coming up, it's very unlikely, okay? So there are few words. Sometimes, so I'm telling you the reality, okay? I'm telling you, if you may not hear from them at all. So different schools, they work differently. Some schools will send you a rejection letter straight away. Unfortunately, thank you for your submission. Unfortunately, whatever, okay, standard. So you get a rejection reply, number one. Some schools don't give you the rejection reply, so you won't know for them. You won't hear from them. But as I mentioned, if you don't hear from any of these schools by late July, you likely are not shortlisted already, which is okay. As I mentioned, don't view it that you're no good. It's just the way the school chooses. I want to say this, clear? So different schools at different date because this is not under MOE. This is by the respective school already. Okay? Now, the next question. Hi, teacher Alvin. Can I apply for leadership when I'm not prefect? I've never been any leadership. So I want to tell you about this student. Okay, I remember yesterday I told you this student, a GP student, ACS primary. because at that time he applied for DSA, there was no robotics. Okay, I just want to be clear. So this was a GP student, ACS primary. So he wanted to go to either Hwa Chong or RI. But the problem was that he only had one CCA in his school. He was not a school prefect. He was not a leader. He was not for everything. So what happened? He came to see me, he and his mother. I told you, once he got the leadership offer, he treated the whole of my church office buffet, right? Because he really owed this to me. So I told him, number one, because you are a good student, yes, but you're not so fantastic in the academic domains. Because if you're not fantastic, you're nowhere near the top. It's very difficult to get a Hwa Chong RI based on the academic grades. It's different than last time before 2015. If your GP student is great, I'll tell you you're 70%, 80% in. But right now, under the system, not so easy, 20%. And I told him it's difficult. Then I asked him, what other domains can you apply for? So he said, I cannot, I'm not a sportsman, I'm not performing arts. So he was here for his mother. We had a 3-hour conversation on this at my structure head office, right? So in the end, he said the only thing left for me is leadership, which I said I agree. But I said that leadership is very competitive. What have you got? Because when I look at his profile, he's not prefect, he's not monitor, he's not nothing. So I said that, tell me what you did. Okay, then he said that, I was involved in this robotics competition and I eventually got second. So I said, okay, good. Now, tell me what happened. So he said that they were working in a group and tell me what happened. So he mentioned that, oh, I don't know how we got second place because it was a miracle. I said, I want to hear that miracle. So he told me that, 2 weeks before the contest, their project, they lost it. The thumb drive got corrupted. Everybody was very demoralized. But they did last minute and somehow they still submitted it and ended up second place. Now you see, everything is about framing. So I told them, now we have a story. Because RI, Hwa Chong asked me to submit a statement. So I said, this is how we frame it now. I said that, now this is a perfect example of showing leadership. So tell them that you were all competing for the National Robotics Competition and one of your teammates lost the thumb drive got corrupted and you had no backup. Now, everybody was very depressed. Now, you step in as the de facto leader. See, a de facto means not official, but you step up, you galvanize them, you inspire them, you look at the duties, make sure the timelines, got everybody to work again. This is your leadership position for you. They shortlisted him. Interview was all about his project. Okay, but this it happened, but I gave him the story. You understand? And I trained him 4 hours. He got it. He got RI leadership and Hwa Chong leadership, despite not being a leader. Okay? So everything is about framing, and now you understand why his mother treated the whole of my strategy head office, because he really owed this place to me, because I created the story for him. So I want you to think about it from different angles. Okay? Different angles. And schools have changed how they leadership. And leadership doesn't mean that you need to become a student leader, because at the end of the day, and they have also changed. Hwa Chong, before 5 years ago, Hwa Chong had this funny policy, which I totally disagree. They had this DSA leadership, and inside the application for JC, Hwa Chong JC, and Hwa Chong secondary, DSA, JC, and secondary, you had this phrase, which I totally disagree. This phrase was this: if you are not a deputy head prefect, deputy head prefect, you are not CCA leader, you are not head prefect, either in secondary or JC, don't bother to apply. They actually at this point, that means do not bother, because you will not get it. Which for me was really, really weird. And why weird? Because it really ruled out other students who may not be official leaders, and they rule out all this pool of students. And true enough, after a few years, they realize their mistake. So right now, you go to the Hwa Chong DSA secondary region, they don't have that phrase anymore. Okay, so a leadership, as I mentioned, is not just official position. Official position doesn't tell you a lot. I told you that I was a head prefect of my primary school, but was I a leader? Zero. I was on head prefect because the teacher likes me. That's the only reason I became head prefect. Was I a leader? No. I was definitely not a leader. I look at many of my friends, secondary school, JC, head prefect, whatever. Does it mean they're leaders? Well, not really, right? Not all of them are. So it's something which is quite intangible. But obviously, you got the position, it becomes easier. Okay? Okay, so hi teacher. I'm head prefect of my school. Yes. Wait. I'm the head prefect of my school. My results are good, but not great. Sure, of course. But hold on. Why do you say you are still applying for RGS? Because the submission is really close, right? So you would have applied to RGS already. Am I right to say that? Anytime you are head prefect, the chances of being shortlisted is higher. Your results are good, but not great. It really doesn't matter. Okay, it really doesn't matter. So should you still apply? Yes. If you want to go to RGS, you apply. Chloe got it. And I assume that you already applied, correct? Because right now, we are past the application stage. Okay? So for all students, very important to take my phone number, okay? Take my phone number and I'll see whether I can have weekly sessions with all of you as a group or give you specific ideas on how you can handle this. Clear? So again, I will repeat, whether you're JC, secondary, please do contact me so that because I'm very experienced in all these things. I've done it like for over 2,000 students over the last 20 years, other than the time I was missing. Okay, I'm quite shy. How do I overcome it? Okay, this is something we got to work into. It's okay to be shy. It's okay to be shy, but it's something which we need to overcome. And the more you do it, the better. So again, I repeat, confidence is not something which you can learn. You have to do it. The reason why I'm a good speaker nowadays and I get invited for a lot of talks is not because I'm a natural speaker, it's because I've done it so many times. Okay, so you do it once, I'm shy. I do it twice, a bit less shy. I do it like 1,000 times, I'm no longer shy. So this is something everybody has got to do this, because once you get this confidence, it solves a lot of things. It solves a lot of things. Okay? It really helps in a lot of things. Next time when you go to working world, you realize exactly what I mean. Okay, if my child is a senior prefect but do not have any, I think it's okay. It's okay. We always got to try. As I always mention to all parents, don't be too conscious of whether you're head prefect or whatever. You just need to have you just need to have a profile, then let them choose. So I repeat, it doesn't matter whether you're head prefect, nor expo role, not important. Chief Scout Award, which is good. Okay, so I look at this profile, right? You are senior prefect, you got a Chief Scout Award. I think this is fantastic, right? You got a Chief Scout. It shows that you're active in the community, in scouting skills, and as well as senior prefect, it brings you across as a more complete person, right? So I think all these things are great. Okay, so will that be suffice for leadership DSA? It really depends. Why I say it depends on the competition. Do you agree? It really depends on the competition. Okay? And sometimes it's a matter of projecting. I give you one example. One student, and these are all the ideas I give them. You see, this student got a leadership DSA in RI. Very competitive. He got in. You know how he got in? And these are ideas which I told him. I told him to have podcasts. Talk about leadership. So you have your own YouTube channel. You'll make yourself a little bit different from the rest. Okay? Okay? So he had a podcast and he got into RI leadership based on his YouTube videos and show that he could speak well. But when it came to the RI selection of prefects, he was not chosen. Okay, so this is one of the ironies. Yeah. So how many questions are usually asked for leadership DSA B group? It really depends. Different schools. So the process can be 2 hours. The process can be 1 hour. The process can be half a day. It depends on the group size. Okay, I'm asking. I'm asking. So that's why I said there is no fixed size. It really depends on the school. It really depends on the thing. So it also depends on the group size. Why? Some groups are 5 people. Some groups are 3 people. Some groups are 1.5 hour slot. Some groups are 3 hour slot. It depends on what they want to assess. It also depends how many students they take in. Okay, clear? So it is Okay, Yvette, okay, this is my this is my frank opinion. I don't want to say anything about the PI right now. I don't want to say everything, but let's just say not many of us are fans. Okay, but anyway, PI teachers told the standard to only apply for leadership if their prefect had been selected to be a class. This would generally not be true because if you are a CCA leader, it stands a chance. But you see, the problem with leadership, I tell you what's the problem with leadership. Because they have nothing to go on. They have no tangible thing to go on, right? So if you say that I'm not a leader in position, but I'm leader in character, it's not going to cut the ice. Why? Because there's nothing for them to show. So at the level, this is definitely true at this level, right? It's definitely true at this level. Primary school, secondary, JC is definitely true at this level. That's why I said you need something tangible. If you don't have something tangible, it's very difficult. So the reason why my GP student got that is because I came up with a fantastic story for him, right? Leadership, the leader, de facto leader of a championship, national championship winning team, and he exhibited all his leadership process along the way. But this was because the teachers in charge would like the story. So it really depends. Okay, it really depends. And the reality right now is that if you don't have a leader, because it's like that, if you don't have a position, you don't have a head prefect, you're not a senior prefect, you're not an exco, it's difficult for them to shortlist you, right? This is the reality. And I tell you why. I just tell you why. So it is all mathematical, which is why I said ultimately for leadership, something is touch and go. And I gave the example yesterday, right? I gave the example of this SCGS primary student. For me, top speaker, diploma in piano, sportswoman, head prefect, fantastic speaker, top student, primary and primary 6, and she was not shortlisted. Which for me was a really silly because I got other students who got shortlisted and they got the places. But this student for me is a completely different level altogether. But this is the lottery of your DSA, which is why I said your DSA, it's not an exact science. Scholarship is different. Scholarship, the people choosing are more astute and it is a lot more stringent. But DSA, these things are going to happen, which is why I said don't despair. If you get it, great. If you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. It's just the way they choose. Is it exact science? No. Sometimes it depends on the country they have with each of you. Would I say this is being a head prefect? Is being a head prefect a higher chance of going to school than a non-prefect? Shortlisting, yes, but not necessarily during the performance. Okay, so I repeat now. So let's say you're a head prefect, I'm a senior prefect. Okay? Okay, so both of us get shortlisted in this particular school. But I'm a very confident speaker. You cannot compete against me when it comes to speaking. You cannot compete me when it comes against coming with ideas. You head prefect versus me, most of the time you are going to lose out. Okay, because it is very clear. You just think about it. If head prefects are true leaders in primary school, don't you agree that most of them would end up as head prefects in secondary school or in JC? Do you agree? Does that happen? No, it doesn't happen. Most of the time, the head prefects in secondary school are all completely different, and some of them may not be even prefects in secondary school. This is true. So I want you to understand that. But on the basis, generally, if you're head prefect versus a normal prefect, everything else remaining constant, results, everything else remaining constant, definitely the head prefect stands a higher chance if everything else is the same. Everything else not the same, that's different. So for instance, you're the head prefect, I'm a prefect, but I am top in mathematics. I am a top sportsman. Now it's different. Now it is different already. Right? So I'm also captain of the track and field team. So it's a little bit different. So it's not exact science. Okay, but if everything else is constant, head prefect, definitely rank higher than vice prefect, definitely rank higher than a prefect. But don't worry about all these things. These are all just theoretical. Ultimately, for me, most importantly is that you get shortlisted. Once we get shortlisted, if you do well in the selection, then we have got a good chance. And doing well in selection doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be a leader anymore. You just need to do well in that particular interview and impress them so that they change their perceptions. Okay? They change their perceptions. This is true. Clear? Okay, wait, I want to go through cover things. What time is it? 9:15. So, okay, so example, primary 6, leadership. I'm head prefect of my primary school. Tell us about time when you led some. These are all very common questions. So I'm giving you the example of a head prefect right now. I'm just giving you examples. There are many different examples. You can be involved in setting up a charity run for your company. You can be in charge of organizing your school's 10th anniversary. You can be involved of you're the head counselor in your secondary school. You can be involved in raising funds for a particular charity. So there are many different examples. I'm just giving you an example. I won't go through this in exact detail, right? So Sec 4 student, DSA, JC applicant, Sec 3 of selected vice president of the student council of 35% the council spending. So I'm giving you real examples. Okay, I'm giving you real examples. You can read about this in your time. Leadership concepts to be ready to discuss. And what I'm teaching you, listen carefully, it's not just good enough for DSA, it's good enough for many leadership positions in the school. Okay, whether it's for prefect, whether it's for counselor, whether it's CC, at least you need to be able to talk about this in general. What leadership means to you, what makes a good leader different from a popular one, a leader you have studied, a leader you admire, the difference between authority and influence. What do you do when a group disagrees with you? Very simple. And do you popular, right? The kind of leader you want to be. All these things we need to be ready to discuss. Okay. Uniform groups. I'm quickly going through this. Us across all schools with strong uniform groups, especially Cs. Why these uniform groups? Why not the others? Okay. What do you think of the purpose? Whether you're St. John, whether you are in MPCC, whatever. Okay, so these are all generic questions, and these are all like what I consider to be general questions we should always need to be prepared about. At least you have some idea of what to say, and don't come across as shocked. And I always mention to all students, if the question comes out, great. If it doesn't come out, chill, no problem. Okay, this is not like competing against super speakers. Don't worry, as long as you're primary 6, you speak like a primary 6 student, show the enthusiasm, show your passion. I think you stand a good chance already. This is how I see it. Okay, you stand a better chance. I won't say good chance, depends on the school. Example answer, uniform group. So again, I'm giving you different answers. Poly, for those students, Poly, I just want to go through this briefly. What changes? Interviewer is often the course lecturer. Why? Because they are now specific to the course. When you go for Poly, you are choosing a specific diploma. So that is why it's usually the course lecturer. What's he saying? The storytelling, specific stories still beats the same. Okay, so you can read about it all these times. Any detailed questions, ask me. Why specific? Because obviously, because Poly, there are many different courses, right? Even within the Poly, many different courses. Why this course? Why not choose accounting and business at Ngee Poly? Why do you want to go to Nanyang Poly to do accountancy and business and so forth, so forth? What modules to what when it's for Poly? Tell us a personal. So all these things are general things which I think is good to prepare for. Example answer. Again, I'm giving you an example. You can read about all this time because you have all the notes already. Okay, now this is the part I want to talk about. If you submitted a personal statement or portfolio, reread everything you submitted back before, and interview questions can ask them anything about it. So there's a reason why the portfolios are submitted or personal statement. Okay, and I told you about the other time when I told you about the student for ACS who got the RI leadership. His whole interview was about the personal statement because it was a story which I created for him, right? And he got in based on the story. Everything is about coming up with a story. He was there. It's not a fake story. It's just a case of how we reframe it. Okay, and why I always want to tell you, framing is everything. I give you one example. Okay, Shen Chuanqi. Okay, now listen carefully. I'm giving real examples so that you understand. Shen Chuanqi used to be a top GP student at Nanyang Primary School. So he went to RI. I know him pretty familiar because I was his coach at primary school for different subjects, and I also his coach. I was the RI coach for chess. He was also a strong chess player. Now you see what happened. I'm just telling you, these are all real stories. This is why I say whatever I tell you is important, not just for DSA, but for going forward. So what happened was this. So he was a top GP student. He went to Raffles RI, but he was no longer among the top there because as I told you, primary school and secondary school is entirely different. So he was okay. I think it's probably top 20%. but nowhere near the top like what he was at Nanyang Primary School. Nanyang Primary School, he was around top 3. Okay. RI, he was probably around top 20%. So for me, it's just a okay RI student. Okay. So you see what happened. He went to JC. But JC, he represented Singapore. He picked up something different. He picked up computer programming. So he represented Singapore in Information Communication Arts in ICT. And in the Information Communication Olympiad, he ended up with a bronze medal. And like many of the Chinese students, they all want to go to the American Ivy League's prestigious universities, right? Because they view Singapore as a bridging. So what happened was this. He applied to all the top American universities with his ICT Olympiad. Okay. Every single one was rejected. He was no one even called for an interview. They just gave him a rejection. No, no, no. Brown University, Princeton, Harvard. Oh, no, 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 no. Straight away, rejection. He had one last choice left, Stanford. I told him, so he called me up at that time. I told him, you should have seen me way earlier. I told him, you come and see me. He came to see me at my structure Bishan. I'm telling you real stories. That's why I say positioning is everything. Right now, it may be too late for you, but what I'm teaching you is a skill because you still have got the JC, you still got the university, you still got the, if you're competitive, you still got the scholarships routes to go, right? Or even workplace, very competitive, GIC, Temasek, all these things. I'm just giving you an example. So what happens was that I spent half a day. So I was trying to show me a personal statement because for all these universities in America, you need to give them a personal statement. And they want a list of all his achievements. So he put down all his achievements. Okay, number one, his personal story was based on his ICT Olympiad. Okay, Stanford was his last choice because he wanted to do computer science. So I said that there's one problem. You make your whole story about ICT Olympiad, but let me ask you something. When you represented Singapore, your club, your teammates, what medal did they have? They said they got the 3 above him all got gold medal, you got bronze. I said that we're not even talking about platinum. Even within RI in the team, you are already the last. And this is only at the RI Singapore team. I say you look at the results. Whole international ICT Olympiad, there are 900 medalists, no. 900 medalists worldwide. You got a platinum, you got your gold, you got a silver, you're bronze. You're only bronze. You are at the tail end, and then 900. All these top universities, you stand no chance, and your results in RI is not fantastic. Okay? Then I went down his list. He had one small line. Okay? One coding contest organized by Google. Now I said that, okay, now you tell me what is in this Google contest. He said that, oh no, Mr. Kuek, it is a small event. I said, no. We got to tell me what this event. He said that it was event which I competed. It was an online coding contest. And I became, and I won it. I said, good. I asked him the next question. Was this contest organized by Google open to the whole world? He said, yes, it was open to the whole world. And I said that now it's different. Google, very prestigious tech name. Worldwide, even though you don't know how many participants, even he said his friends didn't participate. I said, I don't care. Right now, we got a story. The story is you are world champion of a Google content. Everybody likes to enter Google, right? Every tech guy wants to join Google, right? Google is a brand name. And you are world champion, number 1 in the Google coding champion. I said that right now, I'm going to rewrite your whole personal statement. We base everything. Instead of putting it as a last line of your personal statement, right now you put it as a number 1 line. This is something which no others have. Number 1 in the world, Google contest, you are the winner. Not bronze Olympic, not important anymore. I changed it for him. His last choice, Stanford immediately gave him the place, Google World Champion. Okay, so this is my point. Everything is about framing. I'm teaching you this because that's why I say whatever things which I've taught you are DSA for me. Okay, but what I'm teaching you is all life skills. It applies to all parents as well. Okay, I'm sharing with you because I have been through this phase before. Yeah, and I've taught many of these students, and I was a scholar myself for 7 years. JC secondary and university. Okay, so I think you need to submit. We need to be ready. So talk about all these things. Okay, like I answer, right? Good questions to ask back. What does a typical week look like? Someone strong in this talent area. And just give it an example. It is not exact science. Okay, what surprises new students about life in the first month? What kind of student-led projects are running now? Mentorship project. I'm just giving you an example. It doesn't mean that this is the only one. So avoid questions which you can answer on the website, because this shows that you totally didn't bother. Procedural numerical questions. When will I hear back? How many candidates? These are for the admissions office, not for the interviewer. Okay, is the school better than the one I applied to? Very awkward. False questions you don't want to answer. So these are just my ideas. You don't need to if you're not comfortable. Okay, always ask something which you're comfortable with. Mistakes that show across every domain, going general, like answers that could fit any school, any panel, any subject, which is why just now when you mentioned that I want this school because I'm improve in mathematics, it is too general. I want to join this school because it is an interesting program. It's too general, nothing specific. These are no answers, okay? Inflating achievements, calling a zone match national level is a fast way to lose trust, refusing to challenge. Okay, so at the higher level, you realize that at higher level, not at this level, the interviewers are going to challenge you. Okay, but this is at the higher level, not at this level. I'm just teaching you things in advance. Okay, forcing interest you do not feel, saying nothing went wrong, every journey a setback, telling none is a red flag. Generally, yes. Ignoring teams and coaches. Okay, now I want to take a couple of questions. Right now we are almost at 9:30, so don't worry, we will have okay, I'm going to tackle a few questions here right now. Do you know how people start grade? No, the grading is all different. The grading is all different. Okay, but let me tell you how you become a good writer, because I was a top writer in RIN. As I mentioned, one of the things which is natural to me is writing. Okay, so there's a difference between, I always tell students, there's a difference between being a good writer and exam writer. All of us at this level just aim to be exam writer. It's cool, no problem. Just get your A1, get your AL1, AL2, A2 for English, secondary school. I think that's good enough. But if you want to be a really good writer, it's different. Okay? If you want to win contest level, it's different already. That is a completely different paradigm. There, your language ability has to be strong. Okay? So it's different from your PSLE, no problem. You can get full marks. But get full marks doesn't mean you're a great writer. We cannot tell. You can tell the upper set. One look at your essay, I will already know whether you're a great writer or not, because you need to be aware. Okay. So do you know how people grade essays if for creative writing? No, they're all different. But generally, for all this, I will tell you for sure, for all these DSA, whether it's secondary, JC, or high level, your language is important. Okay. Your language is important. Your command of the language has to be different. This is true. Is it generally at your PSLE level or normal secondary school level? Answer is no. Okay. So it's not one. You don't need to have a specific rubric. If it's a good essay, just the 3 sentences you know already. How do you write? I'm just giving you an example so that I'm showing you live. Okay. Let's say I'm a normal writer, primary 6, secondary school, university. I am going to put in this way. I'm just giving you a easy example. So you put in, I felt as cold as ice. Normal simile, right? If I change it, it becomes descriptive. I felt like a naked Eskimo stranded on the sinking iceberg. You see, the imagery is different, you know. I felt as cold as ice, normal. But right now, I come up with my own original. I felt like a naked Eskimo stranded, strong word, stranded on the sinking iceberg. Imagery becomes clearer. Straight away through that one sentence, people will know I'm a better writer. So you see, there is a difference. Okay, that's why I said exam writing on contest writing. Normal writing or J.K. Rowling writing, all authors are different. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. I can conduct writing courses on this, but not now. Okay. Okay, I think it's important. Let's talk about this. I think all these things are okay schools. I'll tell you why. So you ask me, is Yusof Ishak, Zhonghua, HV? I think they're all okay, they're all good schools. This is what I always say. Let me tell you, my stretcher has got students, AL score, PSLE score of 4 to 7 for the last 3 years entering each one of these schools. I'm telling you the truth, Some of them get 4, they went to Yusof Ishak. Some of them get 6, they went to Edgefield. Nothing wrong. They said that, oh, Mr. Kuek, I got pressurized because people ask me why my score is so low, I don't go to other IP schools. I said that there's a school for everybody. Okay? There's a school for everybody. For those of you who want to leave, you can leave. For those of you who want to find out more, I will share more. There's a reason why I try to share as much as possible because you're not going to get. So for those of you who want to leave at 9:30, you can leave. I'll take around 10 minutes more. So for me, it is always like that. Okay, so I want all parents here to understand this. For me, as an educator, I always tell parents and students, we try to get a good set of grades, not because we need to become the top students, but it's because we want to go to a school where more students study. Even though here, Singapore would say that all schools is a good school, but all schools may be good school, but the environment is different. So if you go to a school where many students don't really study, then you may be influenced by them. This is the truth, right? So the environment does matter. Every school will have some naughty students, whether it's ACS, whether it's VS, whether it's Victoria School, whether it's RGS, whether it's Bedok Green, whether it's Hougang, whether it's HU, they will have. The only question is how many, right? So that is why competitive schools, the numbers are less, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. But that's why ultimately I say what exists. Yusof Ishak, Zhonghua, I think Zhonghua is a very, very competitive school. This is my frank opinion. My cousin went to Zhonghua, my young cousin. He went to Zhonghua. People say Zhonghua is no good. You know what he ended up with? He ended up with a PhD in science at NUS. Very good, right? Everything depends on what you do there. So I think Yusof Ishak, Zhonghua, Ashfield, I think they're all okay, right? Whether it's competition or even, so this is my advice to everybody, even if it's not so competitive, you must be internally competitive. And this is important so that you build the base. You control what you can control, right? You control. But does the environment matter? Yes. Because you see, I was in Batu Pahat, the school. So when I told you that I made the leap from primary to secondary, then suddenly I became the top student because I only did one switch. I became very hardworking and I became a little bit more mature. That's why I tell parents, I tell all students, remember what your parents are doing for you, okay? Your parents are here listening to this talk as well and they ask you to study because they want you to be better versions of themselves. This is true. All parents want their kids to be better. So your job, even if you don't want to do anything, be a little bit filial to them so that you give them the assurance that you're trying your best. They're not expecting you to be top students. If you top, great. If you're not, no problem, as long as you do your best. And this was the switch which made me, because when I entered secondary, I realized one thing, my parents were only earning 1,200 ringgit. 1,200 ringgit. Singapore dollar, how much? 400. I'm the eldest of 4 kids, a family 7. How to survive? Cannot survive. And I realized my parents work day and night just to make ends meet. That was a switch for me. So in that mind, I changed completely. I said that I cannot do anything to help my parents other than doing the daily chores. I help to mop the floor, clean the windows. Fine, I do this on a daily basis. But the only thing I can help them is to study harder. So every day, I just study 5 hours without fail. That was how suddenly I became top 20 to number 1 in my school. And because of that, I got a scholarship to come to RI. And after that, I was top 30 student in RI. Not because I'm smart, but because my attitude AL0. Okay, so it's important. So that's why what did RI provide me? It provided me with a competitive environment, but not average, because my class was a top class, because they're all scholars. Average RI, not difficult for me to beat, but top class is entirely different. You understand? That's why I say everything depends on your environment. So you go to Zhonghua, you go to Bedok Green, everything. And I want to share this last story. Okay, this is a real story. One of my friends, okay, he used to be the head of the level head of IP Maths at RGS. Okay, so he has this daughter. Because they always come to me for advice because I'm in this field, right? So, and the daughter was also studying at my stretcher. So level head at RGS. So these are all real cases. That's why I say it's what you do in the school. So the daughter, PSLE got around 17 or 18. Okay? PSLE scored 17 and 18. Not many options. So he went to a school which was near to him. He was staying in Bedok. So he went to a school in Bedok. Fair enough. Now you see what happened. This student, his daughter, was initially very playful, doesn't want to study. So same thing. Okay? So when she went to Sec 1, also like don't want to study too much. So ended up bottom 5. This class around 40 students, bottom 5 in his class. So I told the father, right? The problem with your daughter is that not motivated and mixing with the wrong company, always making with girls who want to play. Then you know what changed? This is a clear example of what can happen if you mix with the right company. Now, in Sec 2, something changed. What was the change? A group of students from China entered the school. 5 students from China. Okay. And for some reason or other, entered her class, 5 students. And for some reason or other, she could click with them. Okay, she could click with them. So now you know those Chinese students that come in, most of them are very hardworking, right? Very hardworking because they are here, they are paying high school fees, $2,000, $1,500 because you're non-Singaporean, non-PR, you're paying that amount. You better jolly well try to succeed. So these 5 students, very hardworking. After school, go to library. After work, do extra. She follows them because she's very young with them. Okay? Now you see what happened now. At the end of the year, top 5 students in her class, these 5 students. Who was number 6? Suddenly she's number 6 already. Because of that, now I actually can do it, no? Actually, my results are not too bad. If I study, of course, the attitude is good. Who you mix with does change. So in the end, she ended up with a good set of O-level results. That's why I said it always depends. You go to RI, you mix with people who want to play computer games, you also finish. I can assure you that. You don't believe me, you go to RI right now. That's why I tell all the students. Our students who are top in RI right now, they all listen to what I said. The first things you do, no computer games. You can play once in a while, but every day it becomes a problem. You don't believe me, you go to RI. Go to the class every morning, everybody is on their mobile, finish. Okay? Especially AI right now. Okay, so these are real issues. So what you do in the school does matter. So don't be demoralized if you don't get a DSA. Okay? Yeah. So for those of you who want to leave, you can leave. And I'll just take 5 more minutes. Then any questions I will ask. So what I can do to help you is that some of these questions I'll put them down as example answers. They are not models. I just want to be clear, not models, but for you to tackle whether it is leadership and some of these ideas for you next week. Okay. Okay. Mr. Alvin, what if they ask a question about any experience with prefect that I've never done before? So don't worry. You just answer to your best ability. Let me give you an example, okay? I give you an example. These are all real cases. You know, at RGS, they asked this question. My student went in as a prefect, right? She was a GP student from RGPS. So the RGS interview question was this, the last question. Why are you not the head prefect? So why are you going to answer? Why are you not the head prefect? So I told my student in jest, I think this student went to NUS High. She's now actually doing medicine at NUS. Okay, so I told the student in jest, this is how I answered it. I'm not the head prefect for the same reason why you're just a teacher and not the principal of RGS. No, this is just a joke. This is just tongue in cheek. But you see, these are questions which there's no right or wrong answer. You just need to answer. Okay, just answer. Don't overthink. Remember, this answer will not determine whether you get the place or not. Just want to see how you think. Okay, you just want to. So if they ask you a question with experience which you have never done before, then no problem. You mention it honestly, because if you've never done before, you don't understand. I'm sorry, sir, for the question, but it's something which I've never really experienced before, because as a prefect at my school, we do not usually engage in these things. I think this is fair. We have never organized a community project because it's not something which my school focuses on. But I guess it's a suggestion which I can raise to my school in future. I think that's a fair answer, right? That's a fair answer. Okay. Okay, for those of you, it's like that now. Okay, for those of you, if the school asks you to write a portfolio, two things you must know. What question they want, they're asking. Second, what they want included in the portfolio. So once you have those, you WhatsApp me. Then I'll tell you, because it is going to be specific to that school. Do you understand? I cannot give you general things because all schools are different. Personal statement, different school, different personal statement. Different portfolio. Sometimes they ask you to include this, sometimes they include different from school. So you need to show me that letter, then I'll give you some advice. Okay, Fiona, I will help you. Don't worry. I have a question. My twins get shortlisted. If get shortlisted, I'll do my best to help you all. So as I mentioned, I may not be able to help everybody, but I will definitely give you all advice. Okay? So if my twins get shortlisted for DSA, yes, I don't charge fees, you know. I don't charge fees. If I want to charge fees, a lot of people will come to me. No, I do this as a matter of my interest, and because I genuinely want to help students, I do not charge fees. You know, there are many learning lab students who actually want me to teach them. I said, no. I said that you can't afford me if I really want to teach. Okay, but no. So I help all these students, I don't charge fees because it's part and parcel of what we do at my stretcher. Okay, and this is always my philosophy, and there's something which you do not know. You know, I just tell you something. You know, if you are poor and you cannot afford, and you're really poor, financial hardship, you get to come to my stretcher for free because this has always been my philosophy. Right, so there are a number of students that are genuinely poor, cannot afford, they come to my stretcher because it's something which because I'm always grateful for the fact that Singapore gave me a scholarship. Okay, without which I won't be here today. Yeah, so even though I'm not technically in charge of my stretcher anymore, I still have some powerful voice. Yes. So I determine all these decisions. So no, I don't collect fees. I will try to help students to the best of my ability. Don't need to collect fees. As long as you're my stretcher student, also speaker student, I will do my best to help. Okay, cool. Yeah, so definitely no problem. If your twins, so Fiona, once your twins get shortlisted, you just let me know. You got my phone number, right? You let me know, then I will see how I can help them. Depending on their domain, then we can have Zoom sessions. Okay, cool. Yes. So most important thing, as I mentioned, is to take my phone number down. Okay, so in case I don't reply, and if it is a matter of urgency, like your DSA interviews, right, you got to call me immediately because got too many messages, they get swamped. Yeah, so you got to call me. Very important. Okay, Ken? So that's it for tonight. And all these questions, I will help you all. Ask me anything next week and feel free to attend. Okay? Thank you very much. So, and thank you everybody for joining and thank you for staying back above the time. We will see you again